Chapter 97. The eastern sky had just turned white when an earth-shattering roar woke up all the people of Kangia Base who were still asleep. Leader! Leader! The captain of the ability user team responsible for guarding the gate rushed in with a flustered expression. They're attacking the city. Those zombies have started attacking the city. Lu Qin, who had not rested well for several days in a row, had bloodshot eyes. When he heard his subordinates report, he didn't bother to change his clothes and immediately rushed out of the room. Call the other teams to gather immediately. According to the tactics I have formulated, each team is responsible for guarding one direction. While speaking, Lu Qin had already activated his wind ability and quickly rushed to the top of the city gate tower. As far as the eye could see, there was a vast expanse of zombies below the city wall. Those zombies roared and rushed over in groups. Using their sharp teeth and nails, they constantly attacked the walls of the base. There were also some zombies level 2 and above that already possessed some special abilities. Their destructive power was even more astonishing. Lu Qin didn't have time to think too much and immediately released a large number of wind blades. Wherever the wind blades passed, a group of zombies would fall. At the same time, a large group of zombies would rush forward wave after wave. In the vast zombie army, Su Wan and Su Rue appeared very small. The two people stood in the middle of a group of zombies, looking at Kangia Base from afar. Lu Qin is a good leader. At least, he hasn't given up on the ordinary people in the base. Su Wan softly said a sentence. In the original plot, Lu Qin died in an accident not long after, and after his death, the entire Kangia Base fell apart and gradually declined. It can be seen that every good team needs a qualified leader. How long do you think he can last? Every ability user has a limited amount of mental power, and it is impossible for them to continuously use abilities. Su Rue's voice carried a trace of ridicule. Xiao Wan, if these zombies continuously attack the city for 3 days, at least, more than half of the ability users in the city will choose to abandon the city and leave. In the face of life and death, if you have a chance to live, then would you be willing to die like this? Without despair, there will be no miracle. Su Wan turned her head and looked at Su Rue. I'm a little hungry. Let's go find some crystal nuclei together. Okay. Thus, such a scene appeared in the zombie army. After groups of zombies were killed by the attacks of the paranormals, two figures would soon casually pass by and take away the core crystals of the dead zombies. Their actions were clean and neat, and very professional. The siege lasted for a whole day. When the sky turned dark, the zombies were still tireless and even more excited to charge forward. The ability users who had been fighting for a whole day were already exhausted and miserable. Leader, if this goes on, we'll all die here. Why don't we retreat? Finally, someone took the initiative to suggest abandoning the city and retreating. Lu Qin hesitated for a moment. No, we can't retreat. He was not a saint, and he had never wanted to be a great hero who saved the world. However, Lu Qin knew that he still maintained the bottom line of being a human. When he first built the base, he did not accept ordinary people unconditionally. Those people paid a large amount of resources and made a great contribution to the construction of the base before they got the chance to settle down. Now, when danger came, as the leader of a base, how could he only care about his own escape and abandon these ordinary people who had already given up everything for survival? As a man with courage, Lu Qin asked himself if he could do this. If he escaped today, he wouldn't be able to sleep and eat in peace for the rest of his life. In the future, no one is allowed to mention such words again. Otherwise, you must be punished by military law. When the ability users on the side heard Lu Qin's words, some people finally felt relieved, while some people started to make small calculations in the bottom of their hearts. When the sky turned dark, Su Wan and Su Rue returned to the ruins where they had been staying. At this time, the originally barren ruins were cleaned and tidy. Yinyu was using his spirit power to play with little Li Xiang while trying to communicate, while Li Tao and his wife were busy cooking dinner not far away. As for Moin and Qi Yi, the two people turned the place where Su Wan and Su Rue originally rested into a small field laboratory. Looking at the brand new experimental platform, as well as those bottles and jars and a large pile of unknown reagents, Su Wan couldn't help but faintly look at Su Rue. Your men are all like this? Su Rue, Uh, should be about the same? Suwon. Actually, I just want to know where I'm going to sleep tonight. On the experimental platform? Once the experimenter entered a state, the experimenter was very focused, so the two people didn't notice Suwon and Su-Rue's figure until Chi poured an orange-red liquid into an experimental vessel at the side. Not far away, Su-Rue frowned and subconsciously pulled Suwon back 3 steps. Then with a bang, the experiment failed. The entire temporary laboratory immediately became a mess. Chi and Imoen looked at each other. The two people didn't have time to summarize their experience when they heard a cold and indifferent voice faintly ring in their ears. "You two, get out and run 30 laps for me. Immediately, immediately." "Yes, doctor." Seeing the two people rush out like rabbits and then start running around the woods, Suwon couldn't help but look at Su-Rue. "Your research institute's punishment method is to run? Life lies in movement," Su-Rue solemnly replied. In fact, there was indeed a special place for running in the research institute. It was a long circular single-log bridge, and under the bridge was a large group of piranhas. That's why running in the woods full of zombies and whatnot was simply too blissful. The next day, the zombie siege continued, and the ability users in the city had gradually become scarce. There were a lot of ability users who had no worries and didn't want to die in battle. They had already taken advantage of the chaos to escape alone. Most of the remaining people were people who dragged their families down. Their loved ones were all here, and they couldn't bear to leave alone. They could only bitterly support themselves in the city. By the 3rd day, the city walls were already crumbling, and the leader, who had been fighting continuously for 3 days, was finally unable to use his ability because of physical and mental exhaustion. The entire Kanjia base was filled with a sorrowful atmosphere of death. Everyone understood in their hearts that they wouldn't live past today. When the surrounding walls were breached, when the endless zombie army roared and rushed into the base, many people closed their eyes in hopelessness. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. Many years later, those who were fortunate enough to participate in and witness the defense of Kanjia base recalled the scene of that day, and their eyes shone with starlight. A burst of clear and melodious music suddenly sounded in the deathly silent city. Immediately, those ability users who were preparing to fight to the death watched helplessly as those zombies all stopped moving and stood in place like statues. After a moment, the boundless zombie army automatically separated into 2 sides, and several figures slowly appeared in everyone's line of sight. When those figures gradually approached, someone in the crowd let out a low cry of astonishment. Some people already recognized that the youngster in the lead was Li Tao's nephew, Yanyu, and following behind Yanyu was Li Tao, who disappeared a few days ago. And following closely behind the two people were actually 2 zombies. In fact, Suwon had recently successfully upgraded to level 4 and could already restore the original human form of the original owner. But according to the plan, she still maintained the form of a zombie. Since the headquarters classified this mission as a dangerous star mission, she must advance step by step. From the beginning, she planned to push Yanyu out to be her spokesperson. Right now, she still couldn't let others discover her true identity. Once the news leaked out, it would definitely attract Yang Zishi's attention. Right now, Suwon still couldn't completely figure out Yang Zishi's trump card and couldn't fight recklessly with her. Chapter 98. Kanjia base being captured. This kind of ending had long been expected by other bases. Even those bases that were very close to Kanjia base began to secretly prepare for the transfer of supplies. Once the zombie army attacked, they would immediately move collectively. However, when the latest news from Kanjia base spread to the surrounding bases, the little partners were all stunned. Kanjia base that had already been breached was actually saved by a little demon? And that legendary little demon that could fight against 10,000 was not only a naturally mutated spirit ability user, but he also had 2 high-level mutated zombie relatives that could talk? Do you need to be so ridiculous? Hearing this news, the leaders of the major bases all felt that they must have been too tired recently, so they had auditory hallucinations. Well, even if it wasn't an auditory hallucination, they also didn't believe such an absurd thing. As a result, each major base sent their own spy teams to Kanjia base to investigate. And at this time, Longxiang base also received the latest news about Kanjia base. After knowing this news, Yang Zixi face slightly changed. She knew that Yin Yu was still alive. That naturally mutated spirit ability user must be Yin Yu without a doubt. After confirming Yin Yu's current position and identity, Yang Zixi immediately contacted her female supporting system in her mind. She wanted to know if Yin Yu was still a threat to her. Moreover, Yang Zixi also wanted to see if she could use Yin Yu as an entry point to trigger some side missions. The female supporting system gave Yang Zixi a chance to be reborn and also gave her opportunities and abilities that others could never reach in their lifetime. However, this system wasn't omnipotent. For example, every time you use the system item, you will spend a lot of points, and those points have to be accumulated through completing system missions. Speaking of system missions, it was even more abnormal. Once the system issued a main mission, the host couldn't refuse it at all. Moreover, the host must complete it within the specified time. Otherwise, the host will be erased by the system. No one was willing to be controlled by others in their life and death, and Yang Zixi, who was now bound by the system, had already died once. It was the system that gave her a chance to be reborn. She had no other choice. She must desperately obtain points and had no choice but to accept her fate and complete the various missions issued by the system. After connecting with the system, Yang Zixi asked about Yin Yu, and sure enough, she triggered a side mission about Yin Yu system. The host triggered the side mission, Yin Yu's Happy Life. The host has the right to refuse to accept this side mission. Once this mission is accepted, please become intimate friends with Yin Yu within the specified time and let him and his beloved have a family. Yang Zixi, Yin Yu is currently not even 10 years old. Okay? What about my beloved? Didn't the last mission ask me to get rid of Su Yin? Yang Zixi unconsciously thought of Su Yin again. That day, because Su Yin followed Chu Feiyang into Longxiang base, he triggered a side quest of cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. The quest content was naturally to eliminate Su Yin. Yang Zixi accepted the mission, but when she saw Su Yin's face full of tears, she hesitated. In the end, Yang Zixi didn't do it herself. She just knocked Su Yin unconscious and threw him into the enemy's area outside the base. Not long after, she received the mission completion notification. According to the system, in the previous life, Su Yin and Yin Yu were a couple that couldn't be together, but in this life, the two people missed each other because of various reasons. Now that Su Yin is dead, Yin Yu also embarked on a completely different life path. Yang Zixi looked at the time limit of Yin Yu's task given by the system. It was 8 years. After 8 years, Yin Yu would also be 17 years old. Yang Zixi hesitated for a moment, but still accepted this side quest with rich points. She wasn't in a hurry to get to know Yin Yu. She first had to find a girl in Longxiang base with a similar personality to Su Yin and nurture her by her side from a young age. Kanjia base. Nowadays, there were 1,000 things waiting to be done in the base. The ability users who had overdrawn their combat power were all recuperating in the logistics department with peace of mind, and the civilians in the base were rebuilding their homes together with a group of powerful zombies under Li Tao's organization and command. Well, in the beginning, everyone was afraid and repulsed by those green-faced and fanged zombies. But after seeing Yin Yu command those zombies with their own eyes and witnessing the two mystical talking zombies by his side, everyone felt that zombies and whatnot, perhaps they weren't that scary. So, when the spies from other bases came to the outside of Kanjia base, they saw a harmonious scene of a large group of people and a large wave of zombies building a city wall together. Everyone expressed, "It must be that the way I opened my eyes today is wrong." In the base, Su Wan and Su Rue wandered on the streets as if there was no one else around. Because Su Wan maintained the appearance of a level 3 zombie, her figure was now very similar to a normal person and her appearance wasn't as frightening as other zombies. So the two people didn't cause too much commotion wherever they went. On the streets, there would occasionally be some bold children poking their heads out and curiously looking at Su Wan and Su Rue. The two people unknowingly walked to the logistics department and came to the place where everyone was recuperating. Because there were a lot of injured people this time, and there was only one healing ability user in Kanjia base. Facing a large number of injured people, he couldn't handle it alone. Now, he could only rescue some seriously injured people first, and those who were lightly injured would receive the most basic treatment with the drugs stored in the base under the care of ordinary doctors and nurses. Dr. Wong, all the painkillers in the base have been used up? When Su Wan and Su Rue entered the door, they heard the nurse reporting to the doctor about the painkillers. In the end of the world, medicine was the most important material, and Kanjia Base's foundation was shallow after all. Recently, the consumption was too big. Now, it was normal for all kinds of urgent medicine to be in short supply. Hearing the nurse's report, the middle-aged man called Dr. Wang frowned. What should we do? There are still several injured people who need surgery immediately. I originally planned to use painkillers to replace anesthetics. Now that there aren't even painkillers, do we really have to perform surgery directly? Although ability users had more powerful skills than ordinary people, their bodies were actually as fragile as ordinary people. Moreover, the remaining ability users in this battle were the relatives of the ordinary people in the base. They had stayed behind to resist to the death for the sake of their loved ones. Compared to the ability users who had fled, they were all heroes. They were all men with courage. Let me do it. An indifferent female voice sounded. Dr. Wang suddenly turned his head and saw two zombies standing behind him. The little nurse on the side was caught off guard and screamed. Then she reacted and nervously covered her mouth, looking at Su Wan and Su Rue in fear. Because Dr. Wang was older, his reaction was a lot calmer. The two zombies by Yin Yu's side that he called elder sister and brother-in-law, Dr. Wang also knew. Everyone even secretly studied the story of these two zombie husband and wife. In everyone's imagination, this was once a very loving couple. In order to save their younger brother in the end of the world, they were both infected. Then, they witnessed their elder sister and brother-in-law turn into zombies in order to save them. The younger brother was stimulated, and his spiritual ability was stimulated. It was even a natural mutation. Under the dual connection of blood and spiritual power, these two zombies had been following Yinyu to protect him. Slowly, they began to recover their independent thoughts as they continuously leveled up. Now, they were able to open their mouths and speak. It can be said that besides their appearance, the two of them were already no different from ordinary humans. That's why the imagination of the masses was very powerful. Dr. Wang looked at Su Wan. In fact, he didn't know how to address her. He couldn't be like Yinyu and call her elder sister, right? You really have a way? I'm an illusionist. Su Wan took a step forward. Tell me which one needs surgery. I can create a real illusion for him so that he won't feel any pain. Really? That's really great. Without waiting for Dr. Wang to answer, the little nurse on the side already shouted excitedly. Dr. Wang, all right, you come with me. After that, Su Wan used her illusions to smoothly help the three injured ability users perform surgery. And under Dr. Wang's request, Su Wan also cast illusions on those ability users who were younger and suffering from the pain of their wounds, letting them rest in peace in the beautiful illusion. Coming out from the logistics department, Su Rue kept looking at Su Wan and kept smiling. What are you giggling about? Su Wan was baffled by Su Rue's smile. Nothing. Su Rue looked up at the gray sky above his head. Xiao Wan, look, the sky is so blue. Speak human words. Su Wan couldn't help but interrupt him. Where is the sky full of gray haze blue? Su Rue hesitated and grabbed Su Wan's arm. Actually, I just think that Xiao Wan, you're the best. You're always so kind and cute. Kind and whatnot, cute and whatnot. Su Wan lowered her eyes. They are also fighting with their lives for their family, for the things they cherish. I can only do this for them. Moreover, this was the best way to increase a favorable impression. Don't tell me you don't understand. In fact, both of them were well aware of the fact that they had personally directed this big show. Were they putting on an act now? Or is it fake compassion? Su Wan didn't struggle with this because in her self-definition, she was never a good person. As a bad person, she didn't need anyone's understanding and approval. Wait, you guys wait a moment. Just as the two of them were silent, an anxious female voice suddenly came from behind them. Su Wan hesitantly steadied herself and slowly turned around. She saw the little nurse beside Dr. Wang panting as she ran in front of her. I'm Ning Cece. I want to ask you to do me a favor. Can you help me? Ning Cece stared into Su Wan's eyes, her gaze filled with hope and pleading. Su Wan furrowed her brows. She wasn't a saint who would help anyone she saw. I don't have time. Saying this, She turned around to leave again. I'm begging you. Ning Cici's voice was a bit choked. I just want to see him again in the illusion. Just once is enough. It was my fault in the past. I had princess syndrome. I was willful. I only knew how to get angry at him. I despised him for not having a decent job and not having a wealthy background. It's my fault. It's all my fault. I had never thought about him seriously, and even because his parents were from the countryside, I often bossed them around. I really know I was wrong. I just wanna see him again. He died for you, right? Do you want to repent to him or atone for your sins? Su Wan's action of turning around hesitated for a moment. Her lips slowly raised into a cold and indifferent arc, truly touching. You're not worthy of him using his own life to exchange for you. So, you'd better live in guilt for the rest of your life. As for meeting him again and apologizing to him personally, I won't give you that chance. Saying this, Su Wan coldly left. Su Rui's breathing also changed, and then he quickly followed Su Wan's footsteps. Some people would always repent painfully after losing something. But what was the use? The dead couldn't hear it, and the wounds you personally cut wouldn't have a chance to heal. Rather than living in the past forever and living in self-repentance, it was better to cut off everything. Or be reborn like a phoenix and become a new person who knew how to cherish. Chapter 99. Although Su Wan rejected Ning Cici's request, the fact that she knew illusions quickly spread throughout Kanjia Base. From then on, there were people waiting outside Su Wan's room every day, asking her to cast illusions for them. Most of these people were ordinary people who had lost their loved ones. In such a desperate world, even if they knew that everything and everyone in the illusion was an illusion, they still yearned for it. Illusions had always penetrated the human heart and could see the darkness at the bottom of a person's heart. At the same time, it could also hit the softest and warmest part of the human heart. Su Wan did not reject everyone. She chose some people she felt could help and cast a small illusion for them, letting them reunite with their long-lost loved ones in their dreams. Just like this, Su Wan and Su Rui's existence became a very normal thing in Kanjia Base. Everyone no longer called them zombie couple behind their backs, but called them Miss Yin and Mr. Su, according to the names Yin Yu said. After 3 months of repairs, the walls of Kanjia Base were finally rebuilt. And because of the last battle, Kanjia Base became famous in one battle. Now, many survivors in the vicinity began to desperately rush in the direction of Kanjia Base. At this time, Kanjia Base welcomed 2 special guests outside. They claimed to be scientists. Because they were very interested in Yin Yu's spiritual ability, they voluntarily joined Kanjia Base and wanted to develop a laboratory in Kanjia Base to contribute to the great cause of the revival of humanity. Well, these 2 scientists were actually Chi-E and Imo-In. The 2 people, with a serious scholarly appearance, were welcomed into Kanjia Base by Lu Qin with the most enthusiastic ceremony. If the leader knew that the scientists who were warmly received by him were the culprits who led a large number of zombies to Kanjia Base, who knows how he would feel? Just like this, Kanjia Base had another tightly guarded laboratory, and this laboratory was named Maple Leaf Laboratory. At first, the people in the base didn't know what Maple Leaf Laboratory was researching. Occasionally, everyone could only see some ability user squads sending live zombies into the laboratory. In addition, everyone also saw that Miss Yin and Mr. Su often went in and out of the laboratory. Moreover, every time they entered the laboratory, they would stay there for at least 3 days. Every time they came out, the 2 people's mental and physical states were not very good. So everyone guessed that the 2 of them should be assisting the scientists in the laboratory to conduct experiments with their own bodies. Just thinking about it made him feel that it was too great, sacrificing himself for others and whatnot. Everyone seemed to have forgotten the fact that 2 of them were actually not humans, but zombies. Just like this, Kanjia Base flourished and the people in the base also lived a peaceful life. Until one day 3 years later, a group of foreign ability users brought a large group of people to the outside of Kanjia Base, breaking the tranquility of the base. This group of outsiders were survivors who escaped from a small base that was attacked by zombies. A small portion of them were ability users, while the majority of them were ordinary people without abilities. Among these ordinary people, There were a few who had obvious wounds on their bodies. It was obvious that they had been infected by the zombie virus. They rushed all the way day and night just to come to Kanjia base. I'm Yukai. The leader of the group of outsiders was a level 4 lightning ability user called Yukai. In the current post-apocalyptic world, level 4 ability users were relatively common. Due to the high attack power of lightning ability users, they were very popular among the major bases. I know that your Kanjia base has its own laboratory and capable people who can control zombies. I came specifically to ask for help from you. These infected people are the family members of our team. We don't want to watch them turn into zombies. I beg you to help us. As long as you are willing to help us, no matter what the result is, I, Yukai, and a group of brothers are willing to go through fire and water for Kanjia base for the rest of our lives. Yukai's request made the gatekeepers of Kanjia base feel very embarrassed because their leader, Lu Qin, was taking people out to do a mission and had not returned. And Yinyu, who had the same status as Lu Qin in the base, was currently doing experiments with 2 scientists in the laboratory. More and more people gathered at the entrance of the base. Until Li Tao returned with his team members from a mission, the entire entrance to the base was blocked. Yukai and the others refused to leave, and those people who came from other places to seek shelter in Kanjia base were afraid of Yukai's strength and the unstable infected people around him. Both sides had been facing each other outside the base. After understanding the course of the matter, Li Tao hesitated for a moment and finally called people to enter the city to invite Su Wan and Su Rue out. Others didn't know Su Rue's identity, but Li Tao still knew a little. When Su Rue and Su Wan appeared at the city gate, it immediately caused a commotion. Everyone had long heard that there were 2 talking zombies living in Kanjia base. They didn't expect it to be true, and after Yukai saw their figures, he immediately became excited, sure enough. Running for his life all the way without stopping to choose to come to Kanjia base was definitely right. At this stage, except for Kanjia base, no other base could subdue zombies and get along with them peacefully. What's going on? Being stared at by everyone as if they were looking at a rare animal made Su Rue very unhappy. He slightly released his low pressure and coldly asked a question. The ice-cold tone and the pressure that made people's hearts tremble immediately made the surroundings quiet down. Even the level 3 ability user Yukai's complexion was pale. Looking at Su Rue in horror, he's very strong. Among the surrounding people, only Li Tao, who was familiar with Su Rue's pressure, could still maintain the most basic calmness for the time being. Sir Su, the matter is like this. Li Tao narrated Yukai's matter to Su Rue. After listening, Su Rue was silent for a while. Just when everyone was waiting for his answer, Su Rue suddenly turned his head and looked at Su Wan with a gentle face. Wife, what do you think? Everyone outside the city. This scene isn't right. Everyone inside the city. That's right. It's this feeling. Our family, Sir Su, is actually a wife slave. Would we talk nonsense? And? At this time, everyone's line of sight turned to Su Wan again. Su Wan slowly took a step forward and stared closely at Yukai's eyes. Yukai only felt that the scene before his eyes began to spin. After a moment, Yukai still stood sluggishly in the same place, but Su Wan slowly nodded. You can accept them. All ability users wait for a unified arrangement. As for the infected people they brought, leave them to me. I will send them to the laboratory. Su Wan's voice made the sluggish Yukai return to his senses. Right now, his face was pale and his head was covered in cold sweat. Just now, come in with us. Without giving Yukai a chance to react, Su Rue and Su Wan had already turned around and returned to the city. With the development of Kanjia base, more and more people came to seek shelter, and among these people, there was no lack of people with ulterior motives. So every time a new ability user was accepted, especially a high-level ability user, Su Wan would quietly launch an illusion. Once the other party passed her illusion assessment, they could naturally successfully become a person of Kanjia base. As for those who couldn't pass, Su Wan could only absorb their ability user's crystal nucleus. That thing was definitely a great tonic for zombies. As for treating human life as grass and whatnot, Su Wan expressed that she was just a zombie. She would never consider this kind of issue related to human nature and morality. That's right. Zombies were so willful. With the departure of Yukai and the others, the outside of the city became lively again. 3 days later, Yukai and the others had been incorporated into a new ability user squad. Their infected relatives also came out of the laboratory for the first time. From the appearance of these infected people, other than their skin turning greenish-black and their nails and teeth sharper than ordinary people, they didn't look much different from ordinary people. Moreover, they still maintained their previous consciousness and thoughts. Kanjiabase's Maple Leaf Laboratory had successfully developed a drug to suppress the zombie virus. This drug could suppress the toxins in the infected people's bodies and let them maintain their human consciousness. Although it still couldn't completely resist the zombie virus, the success of this drug's development was undoubtedly a milestone in the end of the world. In less than 3 days, this news had already flown all over the country like it had grown wings. The latest drug. Chapter 100. In more than 3 years, Yang Zishi had successfully risen to the top of Longxiang Base and became the leader of this base. And just 2 months ago, she had already successfully obtained the firearms in the military base outside B City with Yang Wu and a group of confidants through the detailed information in the system. With these weapons, the ordinary people in Longxiang Base will also become the base's combat power. At this time, she also learned the latest news from Kanjia. Yang Zishi was surprised at first. Sure enough, after her rebirth, this world has changed too much in the system's information. There was no Maple Leaf Laboratory in her previous life. And Kanjia Base should have fallen apart because of Lu Qin's death at this time in her previous life. But now, Lu Qin is still alive and well, and Kanjia Base not only developed very well, they even developed a zombie virus suppressant. This may be the so-called butterfly effect. Yang Zishi has dealt with people from the military before. She knows that those people are absolutely determined to get the newly researched drug. And now, all the forces are getting restless. A Kanjia Base alone will not be their opponent. Now is the best time for her to make a move, to rope in Kanjia Base and gain Yinyu's favor and trust. When the forces of the four sides are getting restless, the people of Kanjia Base still live their peaceful and stable days. Because of Yinyu, the zombies around the base rarely take the initiative to attack humans. The area of Kanjia Base has expanded several times compared to 3 years ago. Now, people have their own fields and orchards. Under the care of plant and water ability users, fruit trees and vegetable fields are growing very well. The entire base achieved self-sufficiency in survival supplies a year ago. And in these 2 years, Lu Qin gradually began to retreat behind the scenes. Although he is still the leader of the entire base, in fact, all the affairs of the base were handed over to Yinyu to take care of. Now, Yinyu is almost 13 years old. Because of the rapid growth of his spiritual power and the tempering of a high position in these few years, he looks far more mature and steady than the average teenager. The entire Kanjia Base is managed very well by Yinyu, and Su Wan, who has long been upgraded to a level 6 zombie in 3 years, still maintains the appearance of a zombie. Well, this zombie appearance, she got used to looking at it. On the other hand, Su Rue had to accompany her and put on zombie makeup, which made Su Wan feel that it was quite difficult for him. However, our family's doctor seemed to be very happy about this. In order to prove that he was a zombie with a bright future, he had to change his appearance every year. Everyone in the base. This year, Mr. Su's new style is also great. Question: which zombie is the best at leading the zombie fashion trend? Kanjia's products. Sir Su is the strongest. Mr. Su. Today, while Su Rue was considering whether or not to change his hairstyle, Li Tao suddenly walked in with a hurried expression. Li Tao was now a rank 5 paranormal. Although he wasn't the strongest in the base, he was the one with the most authority in the base. Everyone knew that he was Yin Yu's elder, but very few people knew the real reason why Li Tao was respected by Yin Yu. What happened? Li Tao was considered a reliable person in Su Rue's heart. It was rare to see him so anxious right now. The people from Longyan Base are here. In today's end of the world, there were 4 major bases. They were the first-ranked Yinji Base, the second-ranked Longxiang Base, the third-ranked Longyan Base, and the fourth-ranked Lingtian Base. Longyan was the closest place to Kanjia. At the same time, it was also the first big base that was destroyed by Yinyu in his previous life. This group of guys came rather quickly. You should look for Yinyu to deal with this matter. Su Rue glanced at Li Tao, his tone very indifferent. This doctor has always been responsible for showing affection. Don't you understand? Fighting and killing and whatnot. I hate it the most. Young master, he's not here. Mentioning this matter, Li Tao's expression hesitated. It's Xiang. He called young master away not long ago. The two people haven't returned yet. And? Su Rue raised his eyes. Li Xiang had officially entered Su Rue's tutelage. These few years, while following Su Rue to cultivate, he also had to lead a group of zombies outside the base to fight. The little imp, who was not yet 8 years old, was already the little overlord among the tens of thousands of zombies outside the base. Speaking of which, Li Xiang was still young after all. It was normal for him to be a bit mischievous and playful. However, Yin knew that child's temperament was more or less tempered and would rarely mess around with little Li Xiang. Thinking of this, Su Rue couldn't help but turn his head to look at Su Wan. On weekdays, when she was idle, Su Wan would sit quietly in her room to absorb energy crystals. This kind of energy crystal was also the latest product of Maple Leaf Laboratory. Of course, it was still in the research stage. However, because Su Rue personally did the experiment, Moin and Chi Yi were just assistants. Therefore, Su Wan was still very relieved to use this artificially synthesized energy crystal. The doctor's products must be the best. In fact, Su Wan also heard Li Tao's words. At this time, she felt Su Rue looking at her, and Su Wan slowly opened her eyes. Now that she was a level 6 zombie, her spiritual power was very strong, and she could communicate with the surrounding zombies from a distance. I found Li Xiang's position. Su Wan used her spiritual power to get in touch with Li Xiang. At this time, her expression was somewhat strange. I think it's better for us to go over. Okay. Su Rue stood up and quietly walked to Su Wan's side. He gently pulled her hand. Tell me their position. Immediately, Li Tao watched helplessly as a dark whirlpool appeared behind Su Rue. The two people's bodies were sucked into the whirlpool and then disappeared. The legendary space teleportation. Li Tao couldn't help but think of the words that his son always said. My master is very powerful. He's the most powerful in the whole world. In fact, all these years, Li Tao didn't see Su Rue make any moves or kill anyone. However, he still vaguely felt that this mysterious Sir Su was very strong. In the end, how strong was he? No one knew the answer to this. At least, Li Tao couldn't say what kind of ability user this Sir Su had. 80 kilometers away from Kanjia base, a space whirlpool appeared out of thin air. Su Rue pulled Su Wan and the two walked out side by side. Master's wife. Little Li Xiang was the first to rush over. Now that he was already a level 4 small zombie, he could already restore his human form. He looked no different from other 8 or 9-year-old children. What's going on? Su Rue always had a calm expression when facing Li Xiang. The so-called strict teacher produces a brilliant disciple. Our family's General Su was trained by a large group of insane iron-blooded instructors since he was young, so he has always been very strict with his disciples.
Master's wife.
Little Li Xiang's eyes turned. He raised his hand and grabbed the corner of Su Wan's clothes and then hid behind her. Master is a henpecked husband. Who in the entire base doesn't know this? Little Li Xiang raised his face and looked at Su Wan pitifully. Master's wife? It really has nothing to do with me. That female zombie is very powerful. Xiang couldn't beat her, so I looked for Yin Yu Gij for help. Who knew? Who knew? I know. Su Wan rubbed little Li Xiang's head. You didn't do anything wrong. You made a great contribution. Really? Little Li Xiang raised his head to look at Su Wan in surprise, but he saw Su Wan's gentle gaze looking at the female zombie who was fighting with Yin Yu not too far away. She was clearly only a level 3 zombie, but she had a very abnormal mutated plant ability. In this mountain forest, every tree, every stalk of grass was her weapon. Following Su Wan's gaze, Su Rue also saw Yin Yu, and that female zombie not too far away. According to Yin Yu's current ability level and spirit power, dealing with such an enemy should be a piece of cake. But as it happened, he was entangled by the other party's vines. The other party didn't seem to want to hurt him, and Yin Yu also didn't use his spirit attack to ruthlessly deal with her. The two people clearly didn't know each other, but they had a strange feeling that they didn't want to hurt each other from the bottom of their hearts. It's Su Yin? Su Rue couldn't help but turn his head to look at Su Wan. Yes, ah. Chapter 101. Su Wan didn't know why Su Yin also became a zombie, but fortunately, she was also a mutated zombie, and she clearly still had human consciousness and thoughts. Su Yin. Su Wan subconsciously took a few steps forward and instantly arrived in front of Yin Yu and Su Yin. Looking at the female zombie in front of her, who also had the appearance of a zombie, Su Yin's gaze flickered. She felt an incomparably intimate and familiar breath. She would never mistake this breath. This was her elder sister's breath. Jia, elder sister? Su Yin struggled to open her mouth. She lived alone among the zombie horde for more than 3 years. Although she had long advanced, she had not spoken for a long time. She was very lonely and very irritable. She had been looking for something, but she couldn't remember what she was looking for. Until she met Yin Yu. His strange breath made Su Yin feel familiar, and Su Wan's appearance finally aroused Su Yan's long dusty memories. Elder sister, is it really you? Su Yin put away the branches that were wrapped around Yin Yu's body. She stared blankly at Su Wan, tears already floating in her eyes. It's me. Su Wan slowly changed into her human appearance in front of Su Yin. Seeing her elder sister's appearance, Su Yin finally couldn't help but throw herself over, hugged Su Wan and cried bitterly. Elder sister, you're still alive. This is really great. I finally found you. I'm finally no longer alone. Whether it was a human or a zombie, as long as they have consciousness, they will feel lonely and will also be afraid of loneliness and solitude. Seeing Su Yin throw herself into Su Wan's arms and cry bitterly, Yin Yu stared blankly on the side. Obviously, this female zombie who was about the same age as him didn't look beautiful at all, but Yin Yu didn't hate her at all. Even when he tried to use his spiritual power to touch her sea of consciousness, her calm and strong affinity made Yin Yu's spiritual power involuntarily fluctuate. The feeling she gave him was too peaceful and intimate, just like a friend he had known for many years. Really touching, Soxi's master's wife's younger sister. Little Li Xiang wiped his eyes on the side. In fact, he was secretly rejoicing. Fortunately, he was smart enough to see that he couldn't tangle with her, so he found someone to help. If he really killed her in a fit of anger, then wouldn't he become a sinner for all eternity? No. According to Master's character, maybe he would have become a dead person? To be precise, he was actually a zombie specimen? Little Li Xiang shuddered and decided not to think about this disturbing hypothesis anymore. In fact, Li Xiang could not understand his master's true feelings at all. Su Rue, hey, are you done hugging? I've never held him for so long before. Just don't overdo it. Don't think that I won't do anything to you just because you're a woman. Anyone who appeared by Su Wan's side and could distract her attention, whether it was a human or a zombie, male or female, was an existence that Su Rue could not tolerate. In short, it was enough to have him by their family's Xiao Wan's side. General Su was worth 10,000, needless to say. Perhaps it was because Su Rue's gaze was too strange. Feeling his gaze, Su Yin, who always had good perception, immediately let go of Su Wan and then pulled Su Wan's hand, cautiously asking, Sister, that person over there, he keeps looking at us. It feels so scary. Su Yin didn't know whether she should use human or zombie to describe Su Rue because he gave her a very strange feeling. From the outside, he looked like the same kind as her, but she could feel the human aura on his body. And even if Su Rue didn't wildly and dazzlingly release his coercion, Su Yin still felt Su Rue's danger. He is. Su Wan paused. He's your brother-in-law. Even if they were regarded as husband and wife by the entire base, the two of them had been arranged to live together all these years. But in reality, the two of them only lived together normally, nothing more. At the beginning, Yin Yu kept calling brother-in-law brother-in-law. That was also misled by Su Rue. These few years, he was used to calling him that and no one corrected him. Therefore, this was actually Su Wan's first time acknowledging Su Rue's identity, and it was also in front of this body's younger sister. Sure enough, hearing Su Wan's words, Su Rue, who had been paying close attention to the two people, teleported in front of Su Yin. Little sister, I'm Su Rue. You can call me brother-in-law. This is the first time we've met. Please take care of me in the future. As he spoke, Su Rue also revealed an extremely sincere and charming smile to Su Yin. Brother-in-law's complexion changed so quickly. Little sister accepts incompetence. Su Yin stared blankly for a good while. Her heart had been tangled. This kind of brother-in-law doesn't seem reliable at all, right? But she really felt that he was strong. Su Yin was still very confident in her perception. Moreover, he didn't despise her sister's zombie identity and whatnot. Thinking about it, he might also be a good man. Thus, Su Yin very happily acknowledged a certain person's existence. Hello, brother-in-law. It's been hard on brother-in-law to take care of elder sister all these years. Elder sister, brother-in-law. At this time, Yinyu, who had been ignored all this time, couldn't help but come forward again. He somewhat embarrassedly scratched his head and looked at Su Yin with clear eyes. So you're Su Yin Mimi? My name is Yinyu. I was adopted by elder sister and brother-in-law. Suwon. What adoption? What's going on? How come she didn't know? There's also me. There's also me. At this time, little Li Xiang also immediately jumped out to make his presence known. Hello, little martial ant. I'm Li Xiang. I was also adopted by master and master's wife. Suwon. Li Tao and his wife have already cried themselves unconscious in the toilet. Okay? Su Yin. It turns out that elder sister and brother-in-law are so compassionate. It seems that you really can't judge a book by its cover. This brother-in-law is really much more reliable than that selfish Chu Feiyang. There is a saying that birds of a feather flock together. Suwon quietly pulled Su Rue's sleeves. Have Yinyu and little Li Xiang been going to the laboratory recently? I think they've all been infected by Qi, that idiot. Su Rue. In fact, the person who stayed with Li Xiang and Yinyu the longest was Su Rue, but Su Rue would not admit his stupid cute nature. It's still okay to be cute, but it's absolutely impossible to be stupid. Cough cough. Su Rue straightened his face and immediately said in a low voice, Yinyu, Longyin's people are coming over. They should be coming for the new type of medicine. You should go back and deal with them first. People from Longyin base? Yinyu hadn't answered yet when Su Yin on the side couldn't help but ask, is it a team led by a fire ability user? You know them? Su Wan turned her head and looked at Su Yin with some doubt. More than just knowing them. Su Yin's gaze was somewhat fierce. I met them on the road a few days ago and was almost caught by them to be an experimental subject. In the past few years, with the mutation and upgrade of zombies, all the major bases began to openly and secretly conduct research on zombies, but there hasn't been any progress. Nowadays, aside from the legendary Green Leaf Research Institute, there is only Kanjia's Maple Leaf Laboratory that can develop practical medicine. Sure enough, enemies won't meet. Su Wan lamented the arrangement of fate. In the previous life, Su Yin died in the hands of Longyin base's people, and in the end, Longyin base was personally destroyed by Yinyu. Chapter 102. In the end, Yinyu went back alone to deal with the envoy from Longyin base. Of course, Su Rue and Su Wan wouldn't ask how he dealt with it because Longyin's people were doomed to not return. The people from the other bases outside all knew that Yinyu was a mutated spirit type and could deter the zombies outside the base, making them not dare to approach Kanjia base. And the people of Kanjia base only felt that the zombies outside their base looked very pure and never took the initiative to attack humans. But they didn't know that the truth was that this group of zombies had long been controlled by someone. The one controlling them was naturally Su Wan, who stayed in the city all day and seemed to have nothing to do. Zombies were a new species that appeared after the end of the world. In fact, they needed to constantly evolve just like humans, survival of the fittest. Although Su Wan had been in the base for the past few years, she would occasionally go out with Su Rue. They brought little Li Xiang to level up in the zombie horde, while subduing other mutated zombies near the base. Now, in other people's eyes, the large number of zombies in this area looked no different from a few years ago. In fact, the zombie army here were all high-level zombies with initial consciousness. And those zombies who were destined to be unable to recover their consciousness and could no longer become human had been obliterated by Su Wan and Su Rue. Their crystal nuclei were contributed to other people of the same kind who had the ability to level up. Now that Su Yin also came here, Because she hadn't reached level 4 and couldn't transform into human form, Suwon decided to let her stay outside the base with little Li Xiang for the time being because Su Yan's affinity was also very talented in controlling the zombie army. And they might start a war with Longyan soon. It was also time for this large zombie army to bare their fangs. The progress of the matter was similar to Suwon's prediction. Longyan's people ran into a soft rebuff here and left in anger. Shortly after they left, this team was besieged by a large group of zombies, and in the end, they were gloriously annihilated. Longyan's side quickly reacted. They strongly believed that this was a deliberate murder, and the mastermind behind the scenes was naturally the people of Kanjia Base. While they strongly condemned Kanjia Base, they also firmly demanded that they hand over the murderer within 10 days. Otherwise, Longyan Base will implement military sanctions on Kanjia Base. When this news came out, the surrounding major bases began to secretly mobilize their troops. On the surface, everyone was watching from the sidelines. But in fact, they all wanted to be the fisherman who benefits from the fisherman. At this time, the people of Kanjia Base were very angry. In their view, the people of Longyan had hypocritically sent people to snatch their potions. After being rejected, they had become angry out of humiliation and framed them. This was simply shameless to the extreme. Under the anger of the people in the base, the entire base entered a state of active preparation for war. You want to fight? Let's fight. Just when the smell of gunpowder was thick between the two bases, Long Xiang's people suddenly visited Kanjia Base under Yang Zixi lead. Yang Zixi had already calculated this timing. When she brought Yang Wu and the others through the gates of Kanjia Base, the expression on Yang Zixi's face instantly changed. System prompt. Discover Dr. L's aura within 10 kilometers of the host. Dr. L, in his previous life, he was a particularly mysterious man. Apart from knowing that his name was Ling Jing and that he was 26 years old this year, all other personal information about Dr. L was blank in the system. Even the system did not know the true face of this mysterious Dr. L and could only barely pinpoint the approximate area of his appearance by relying on his faintly discernible aura. Yang Zixi thought that she would have to wait a long time to get close to the Green Leaf Research Institute. She didn't expect to meet Dr. L here. Green Leaf Institute. Maple Leaf Laboratory. Yang Zixi's eyes suddenly brightened. Could it be that Dr. L is in Kanjia Base's Maple Leaf Laboratory right now? With this speculation in his heart, Yang Zixi increasingly felt that his idea was correct. It must be Dr. L, otherwise, how could there be a second genius who could develop the zombie virus? With such an unexpected joy, Yang Zixi and Yin Yu had a very cordial and harmonious friendly meeting. When Yang Zixi and Yin Yu met, Su Wan and Su Rui were sitting in the conference room next to them. The two people did not speak and just quietly sensed something. It has been almost 4 years since they entered this world. Although they have been paying attention to and collecting information about Yang Zixi, it was still the first time that they were in such close contact with the target. Until the people in the conference room next door dispersed, Su Wan recovered from her senses and deeply looked at Su Rui. Did you feel it? And Su Rui nodded. In Yang Zixi's sea of consciousness, there is a spiritual fluctuation that doesn't belong to her. It should be the system that resides in her mind. It's similar to artificial intelligence, but in fact, it should be regarded as a kind of parasitic spiritual body. I feel that its fluctuations are very large right now, and its spiritual strength is slightly weaker than mine. However, if I rashly make a move, I'm not sure if I can destroy it in one go. I know. Suwon nodded. According to the information we currently have in our hands, Yang Zixi has healing and space dual abilities, but in fact, she only has the healing opportunity that she snatched from the original female lead. The so-called space actually doesn't exist. The space she uses is her system space. This space can not only store materials and produce food, but it can even store living creatures. And once Yang Zixi herself encounters a life and death crisis, she will automatically be pulled into that space by the system. Therefore, we must not rashly make a move. Otherwise, we will inadvertently alert the snake and bring about endless disasters. System space.spiritual lodging. Su Rui was silent for a moment. Xiao Wan, according to our mission prompt, this system is rejected by the laws of this world, and it resides in Yang Zixi's sea of consciousness, forcing her to complete various tasks. These should be the basis for its recovery of spiritual power to fight against the laws of the world. I just noticed that the spiritual fluctuations of Yang Zishi and that system have been in a very excited state. I guess they must have some other task in Kanjia base this time. Hearing Su Rue's words, Su Wan's eyes suddenly brightened. You want to destroy her task? That's right. Su Rue nodded. The system in her sea of consciousness can't discover my spiritual power for the time being. I will always monitor their movements and find out the real purpose of their visit this time. Yang Zishi, who left the conference room, didn't know that she was already being monitored by Su Rue. She excitedly brought Yang Wu and another female ability user that she had carefully cultivated and toured the scenery of the entire Kanjia base together with Yin Yu's company. When they passed by the Maple Leaf Laboratory, Yang Zishi specially stopped for a few seconds. She probingly asked Yin Yu if she wanted to meet the legendary great scientist. Unfortunately, this idea was rejected by Yin Yu on the grounds that the other party was currently doing experiments. However, Yang Zishi was not discouraged. She found an opportunity and left with Yang Wu alone, leaving the female ability user who was about the same age as Yin Yu to stay behind alone. Although Yin Yu was young, he was very good at observing people's words and body language. Seeing the little girl's flushed face beside him and Yang Zishi's nimble leaving figure, Yin Yu's complexion slightly sank, beauty trap and whatnot. Only she could think of it. After leaving Yin Yu's line of sight, Yang Zishi relaxed and brought Yang Wu to the outside of the Maple Leaf Laboratory. This was the most heavily guarded place in Kanjia base. At this time, they could only watch from afar. Miss, is it really all right to leave Lu Yu alone by Yin Yu's side? Yang Wu was still worried about Lu Yu's matter and did not notice Yang Zishi's sparkling eyes staring at the laboratory. Lu Yu was that female plant ability user. She was found by Yang Zishi 2 years ago and carefully cultivated. Now, she was only 13 years old but was already a level 4 ability user. At first, Yang Wu did not know the real purpose of Yang Zishi's cultivation of Lu Yu. Until this time, on the way to Kanjia base, he accidentally heard Yang Zishi instructing Lu Yu. Yang Wu then knew that Yang Zishi carefully cultivated Lu Yu in order to give her to Yin Yu. This made Yang Wu's heart very uncomfortable. He didn't know when it started, but eldest Miss had already become so unscrupulous. In fact, she could already call the wind and summon the rain in Longxiang base. Moreover, Yang Wu also went to Yang Zishi's space. Her magical space had large fields and springs, just like a fairyland. For a moment, Yang Wu even imagined that they would be far away from the troubles of the end of the world, leave Longxiang base and find a place where no one would disturb them. Only he and Yang Zishi, the two of them, with his skills and her space, they could live a carefree life. At that time, the man would plow and the woman would weave. Their children would surround their knees. It must be a very happy and blissful appearance. But that this was also Yang Wu's own extravagant hope. He watched with his own eyes as Yang Zishi changed from an ordinary person to the leader of the base who could call the wind and summon the rain. He followed all the way, unchanging in the wind and rain. Chapter 103. On the night he stayed in Kanjia base, Yang Wu secretly sneaked into Kanjia base's restricted area at night according to Yang Zishi's instructions, Maple Leaf Laboratory. This night exploration was smoother than Yang Wu imagined. He avoided a group of eyes and soon entered the central hall of the laboratory. The clean and tidy white hall. In addition to a large pile of experimental equipment, there was also a flashing red door at the side of the hall. Yang Wu stared at the door and his gaze began to become somewhat absent-minded. He felt that the door was calling him to open it. Open this door and he will get a different life. Dripping with sweat, Yang Wu sat up from the bed and realized that he was not in the Maple Leaf Laboratory, but in the guest house of Kanjia base. He had a dream last night. The content of the dream was already somewhat fuzzy. Yang Wu just instinctively felt a little uneasy. He hurriedly got up and simply tidied up and left his room. In the early morning, the sun was shining. In Kanjia base, people's busy figures and clean smiling faces could be seen everywhere. There were too many differences between here and Longxiang base. Quietly looking at the people coming and going on the street, it was as if they were still living before the end of the world. Everyone was so satisfied and calm. There was no oppression and fighting in other bases, and there was no scheming between various teams. In other places, everyone could fight to the death for a crystal nucleus. But here, many crystal nuclei were casually thrown around by the children on the street as if they were toys. This does not mean that Kangia Base has an excessive wealth of crystal nuclei. This only shows that in this place, everyone does not regard crystal nuclei and power as too important. Ordinary people and ability users get along very harmoniously. Even on this street, you will see a lot of infected zombies. They also live like ordinary people and did not receive any rejection or contempt. Isn't this the place I always hoped to live in? Yang Wu's gaze was somewhat absent-minded. When he returned to his senses, he noticed that the street had become very crowded and lively. And in the middle of a large group of people, there were 2 zombies, one male and one female. This should be the legendary Yin Yu's sister and brother-in-law, Miss Yin, Mr. Su. These 2 zombies were now very famous in the end of the world. Yang Wu could also see that the people of this base truly loved and cherished them. Humans and zombies can actually live together so harmoniously? This made Yang Wu feel somewhat incredulous. At this moment, a cold and sharp gaze pierced through the air. Yang Wu felt goosebumps all over his body. The feeling of being instantly seen through made his face pale. Who was it? Following that feeling, when Yang Wu looked back, he only saw the backs of the 2 zombies leaving. Was it them? Yang Wu could not help but frown. At this time, Su Rue, who was routinely showing affection on the street, was holding Su Wan's arm and whispering in her ear intimately, "There's already a flaw in Yang Wu's sea of consciousness. Your illusion technique yesterday has already taken effect." The spiritual attack just now was Su Rue's test of Yang Wu, and the result of the test made Su Rue particularly satisfied. Just yesterday, he had already used his heaven-defying spiritual power to secretly eavesdrop on the conversation between Yang Zishi and the system. After knowing the system's objective and mission objective, they decided to beat him at his own game and KO this foreign system in one go. Since Yang Wu's side is almost ready, the other plans can also be implemented. As she spoke, Su Wan couldn't help but pause. The expression on her face was somewhat subtle. "Are you sure that the matter of dealing with Yang Zishi should be handed over to Qi and not Imo-in? I have already instructed Imo-in to return to Green Leaf Research Institute." In Su Rue's view, Green Leaf Research Institute no longer has the need to exist, and now with the existence of Maple Leaf Laboratory, he can just gradually whitewash everyone. And Su Rue suddenly smiled gently at Su Wan. "Don't you think that Qi is actually the best candidate to pretend to be Dr. L?" Feeling good about himself, feeling that he has always been the elite of the elite and whatnot. Even if he is hypnotized, he reckons that he has always felt that he has always been awesome. On the second day after Yang Zishi arrived at Kangia Base, she announced an alliance with Kangia as the leader of Longxiang. During this relatively sensitive period, Yang Zishi's decision undoubtedly pushed herself to the opposite side of the other alliances and made the people of Longyan Base feel that they had lost face. Longxiang Base was originally stronger than Longyan, but that referred to the overall strength of Longxiang. This time, Yang Zishi only brought a small team of ability users and dared to support Kangia in such a high-profile manner. This was undoubtedly slapping Longyan's face. Longyan's leader, Qin Fei, was also a ruthless character. He knew that Longxiang was relatively far from here and had no time to send reinforcements. Under such circumstances, Qin Fei steeled his heart and directly mobilized all his forces to raid Kangia Base. He wanted to win by a surprise move like this, taking advantage of the fact that Kangia was unprepared, using the fastest speed and the smallest loss to break through Kangia, and then directly detaining Yang Zishi in his hands. This way, not only could he keep Longxiang's people in check, but the people from other bases would also be afraid and not dare to act rashly. It has to be said that Qin Fei was also considered an ambitious and ruthless person. He was a person who did big things, and his actions were swift and fierce. Unfortunately, the one he faced this time was Kangia. On the surface, Kangia Base's combat power could only be ranked in the middle among the major bases, but its actual combat power was frighteningly fierce. When the people of Longyan Base set off, they were discovered by the zombie soldiers that were following them. So, without any accident, When they passed through the enemy-occupied area 100 miles away from Kanjia Base, all the people of Longyan Base were surrounded by the zombie army like dumplings. The endless zombies brandished all kinds of skills and continuously attacked. Before the people of Longyan could react, a large number of casualties had already appeared. In the end, under Qin Fei's command, Longyan lost more than half of its combat power. Only a small number of elite people were left and barely managed to break through the zombie horde. This time, Longyan Base died before they could succeed. And the news of Kanjia Base colluding with the Zombie King to rebel against humanity also spread like wildfire. Facing the doubts of all parties, Yinyu represented Lu Qin and expressed Kanjia Base's attitude: "We want to create a new era of peaceful coexistence between humans and zombies. Whether it is zombies or infected people, they were also humans before and also our relatives. No one has the right to ruthlessly deprive them of the chance to survive." After making a righteous speech, Kanjia Base issued an announcement to the whole world that they were willing to accept infected people and mutated zombies who had recovered their sanity from all over the country. As soon as this statement came out, the world immediately went into an uproar. Almost overnight, several other bases unified their pace and formed a crusade army headed by Yinji Base. And because of the alliance between Longxiang and Kanjia, the leaderless Longxiang Base had long been secretly controlled by Yinji's people who had long coveted their base's resources. This change came too suddenly. Yang Zishi couldn't rush back for a while, and for the sake of the system's mission, she couldn't abandon Yinyu, her ally, and couldn't leave Kanjia Base. Fortunately, Yang Zishi, who always had the system by her side, didn't see Longxiang Base as important. In her view, she had a powerful system: Yinyu, this little boss, and Dr. L, this potential world-destroying boss. Even if the whole world was her enemy, she could still turn the clouds and reign with one turn of the hand. In this way, Yang Zishi and Yin Yu had already been labeled as in the eyes of the outside world. When various forces gathered and planned to attack Kanjia Base, the people of Kanjia Base were still the same as before. Regarding Yin Yu's world-shocking remarks, they felt that it was very normal and there was nothing wrong with it. And now, among the younger generation of Kanjia Base, some children had seen little Li Xiang's skills. In addition, they were confused by Su Rui's increasingly fashionable zombie appearance. There were actually many teenagers who ran to Lu Qin's office and scrambled to be a living experimental subject in Maple Leaf's laboratory. In their opinion, being able to switch back and forth between a human and a zombie was simply too cool. And now, every time those aunties in the base looked for a son-in-law, they would always talk about Mr. Su. "It would be good if my son-in-law was half as powerful as Mr. Su. Also, my daughter must marry a person who loves his wife so much and is so infatuated like Mr. Su." As a result, Su Rui had imperceptibly set a benchmark for the young people of Kanjia Base. Want to marry a wife? Want to become stronger? Everything should be in line with Mr. Su. Therefore, the foolish young people felt that they had found a shortcut to the road to success. Chapter 104. The first battle between the bases after the end of the world finally started. Yin Ji and several other bases' ability users' allied forces mightily attacked Kanjia Base. And the entire Kanjia Base, in addition to ability users, also had a mutated army composed of a zombie army. After the two sides fought, the battle situation was very fierce. In order to reduce the casualties on their side, Su Rui and Su Wan also mixed in with the zombie army to participate in the battle. Originally, Su Yin had planned to attack level 4, but the war suddenly started. Su Yin had to temporarily give up his promotion and together with Li Xiang, commanded the zombie army to defend Kanjia Base. This was the first time that Kanjia Base's ability users fought side by side with their zombie allies. Because zombies were born with coarse skin and thicker flesh than ordinary people, they became the best shield for Kanjia Base's ability users. The cooperation of both sides greatly reduced the enemy's spirit in the first confrontation. But after a long time, the other side's ability users came up in batches. Because of the disadvantage in numbers on Kanjia Base's side, a large number of injuries quickly appeared. At this time, it was finally time for Yang Zishi to play a role. She was a level 6 healing system. Now, as long as Yang Zishi launched Healing Light, she could instantly heal more than 10 injuries. Although such a big move couldn't be used continuously, who was Yang Zishi? A strong woman with a space system. Seeing Yin Yu's side, showing weakness, Yang Zishi hesitated and took out her space spring water. She mixed the space spring water with the healing effect with other medicines and gave it to the injured ability users. Although this also required a certain amount of system points to exchange, Yang Zishi felt that it was still worth it. At least after she tried her best to help, Yin Yu's gaze finally had a friendly temperature, and he also took the initiative to ask her to go with him to the laboratory to meet the legendary scientist. When Yang Zishi first saw Qi, he was busy in the laboratory alone. White lab coat, short black hair, handsome and in different appearance. Everything looked similar to how she had imagined Dr. L to look. At this time, Qi was concentrating on the experiment and did not notice the arrival of Yin Yu and Yang Zishi. When he finished the experiment and raised his head, only then did he notice Yin Yu's figure and the smiling Yang Zishi beside him. Leader Yang, this is Dr. Qi. Professor Qi. This is our ally, Chief Yang. Yin Yu formally introduced Yang Zishi's identity to Qi. Qi immediately remembered the task that Su Rue gave him. His face turned cold and imitated Su Rue's previous appearance in the laboratory. He carelessly made an N sound, then lowered his eyes again, assumed an aloof posture, and seriously looked at an experiment report on the table. At this moment, the three people's hearts were in a mess. Yang Zishi, Dr. L is really cold. Yin Yu, keep pretending, keep pretending. Qi, Luan is indeed a genius at acting. Well, there's nothing in this world that can stump me. Cosplay and whatnot, it can't get any easier. After confirming the identity of Dr. L in the laboratory, in addition to treating the wounded every day, Yang Zishi had another task every day, which was to go to the laboratory at a fixed time every day to make his presence known. Yang Zishi, Doctor, this is today's lunch. Qi, yes. Yang Zishi, Doctor, can I use this potion? Qi, what? Yang Zishi, Doctor, what do you want to eat today? Qi, would it kill you to say one more word? Would it? Yang Zishi felt that it was very difficult to increase Dr. L's favorability. It was tiring and he didn't like it. And at this time, Qi's heart was actually collapsing. To disguise a chatterbox as someone who cherishes words like gold, this was simply more stifling than running on a single plank bridge in the laboratory. On the 10th day of the battle, the Ability Alliance's army finally began to retreat in defeat. At this time, the ability users of Kanjia base led by Li Tao and Yang Wu naturally pursued the victory, but in the process of pursuing, they encountered an ambush by the other party. Fortunately, there was the timely rescue of the zombie army led by Su Yin. And in this arduous battle, Su Yin also broke through for the first time in battle and was promoted to level 4. Watching the female zombie in front of him gradually change into a delicate and pretty girl, Yang Wu's eyes couldn't hide the deep shock in them. Even though Su Yin had changed a lot from a few years ago, Yang Wu still recognized at a glance that this zombie girl in front of him was Su Wan's younger sister, Su Yin. At sunset, Li Tao and Yang Wu finally rushed back to Kanjia base with their injured companions, and Su Yin, who had recovered her human form, also followed them into the base. In the past, Su Yin lived in Kanjia base for a period of time. Now that a few years have passed in a flash, a lot of changes have taken place here. The people she was familiar with in the past also left and died. Now, only Shaolin Gij was still living in Kanjia base. Su Yin heard Li Tao mention him before. The hot-blooded youth who followed behind Chu Feiyang back then was now married and had children in the base, living a very happy life. When Su Yin went to visit her old friend, the injured Yang Wu did not follow everyone to the logistics department to heal his injuries. He walked alone on the quiet street, his gaze complicated and deep. Yang Wu. A crisp voice suddenly sounded in Yang Wu's ear. He abruptly raised his head and saw a familiar face, indifferently smiling at him. Su Wan. Yang Zishi knew that Yang Wu was already resting when he was injured. She quietly came to the outside of Yang Wu's room. The window of the room was open. From the open window, she could see Yang Wu sitting at the table helping himself bandage his wounds. Yang Zishi's gaze sank, and she immediately pushed the door and walked in. Why didn't you tell me when you were injured? With a trace of displeasure in her tone, Yang Zishi forcefully grabbed the bandage in Yang Wu's hand and a healing light fell on Yang Wu's body. The wounds on his body immediately healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. They are all small injuries. I don't want you to consume your ability because of me. Yang Wu lowered his eyes and his tone was as low as usual. How can treating you be a waste? Yang Zishi blurted out with some dissatisfaction. She froze for a moment as soon as the words came out. When Yang Wu, who was sitting on the side, heard Yang Zishi's words, his expression slightly changed. Miss, I saw Su Yin today. Who are you talking about? Yang Zishi froze for a moment when she heard Yang Wu's words and asked in disbelief. Su Yin, Su Wan's younger sister. No, impossible. She's already dead. How could? It wasn't that Yang Zishi didn't trust Yang Wu, but didn't the system determine that Su Yin was already dead? She didn't die. She just turned into a zombie. Now, she's already a level 4 mutated zombie. Yang Wu stated in a low voice. How could the system make a mistake? Yang Zishi suddenly felt a stab of pain in her head because this was the first time she questioned the system. The system in her mind immediately began to attack Yang Zishi's sea of consciousness, giving her a warning and punishment. Miss, what's wrong? Seeing Yang Zishi suddenly holding her head with a pained expression, Yang Wu suddenly remembered that he met Su Wan last night and the words she told him. Is it the system? Did the system you're bound to do something to you? Yang Wu nervously held Yang Zishi in his arms and shouted at the air. I don't care what system you are. Hurry up and get out of Mrs. Sea of Consciousness. Ding. Right at this time, the cold mechanical voice of the system suddenly sounded in Yang Zishi's mind again. Hidden mission triggered. In order to ensure the safety of the system and the host, please erase the insider, Yang Wu. This mission must be completed, and the time limit is 3 days. If the host is unable to complete the mission within the specified time, the host's soul will be erased. No, don't. Yang Zishi only felt the pain in her head getting more and more severe. In the blink of an eye, she fainted in Yang Wu's arms. At this time, Su Wan and Su Rue quietly stood side by side outside the door. As you guessed, that foreign system is very afraid of others knowing its identity. Right now, it has issued a mission to Yang Zishi to kill Yang Wu. Speaking to here, Su Rue paused and then lowered his voice. I just felt that the so-called system's spiritual body is a lot weaker than a few days ago. After punishing Yang Zishi today, it seems to have fallen into a dormant state. I reckon that it will restart in 3 days. At that time, if Yang Zishi completes the mission, she can naturally replenish its energy. If Yang Zishi is unwilling to kill Yang Wu, then this spiritual body won't have enough energy and there's nothing to worry about in the future. Hearing Su Rue's words, Su Wan was silent for a long time. That foreign self-proclaimed system's spiritual body needs to rely on a powerful soul to absorb the world's spiritual power. And the way it absorbs spiritual power is through issuing missions and letting the host complete the mission for it. When the mission is completed, it will absorb a certain amount of spiritual power from the world. Now, because the system knew that Su Yin was still alive, its spiritual power became unstable. And because of Yang Zishi's suspicions and Yang Wu's discovery, it overdrew its spiritual power and fell into a dormant state. Now is the best time to get rid of the system. Of course, if they want to kill the system now, they must kill the system host Yang Zishi together. Su Wan silently walked to Yang Wu's room step by step. Right now, she and Su Rue did not disguise themselves. Seeing the two people appear at the same time, Yang Wu subconsciously hugged the unconscious Yang Zishi in his arms. Get out of the way. I don't want to kill you. Su Wan's tone was very cold and her eyes did not have any human warmth. Heh. Yang Wu just smiled. In that dream, in my previous life, I already lost her once and also died once. As he spoke, Yang Wu gently raised his face and looked at Su Wan. I know you guys hid your strength. Of course, even if you didn't hide your strength, it doesn't matter. I won't resist. Kill me. In this life, at least I want to die together with her. Everything in his previous life, Yang Wu had already experienced it once in Su Wan's dream. In his previous life, Yang Wu, who lost Yang Zishi, forced himself to become stronger. He looked for opportunities to find Chu Feiyang again and again to take revenge. Unfortunately, as a supporting role, He never had the strength and luck to overthrow the protagonist, the young Zishi of this life, because of the appearance of the system, was like a completely different person. But Yangwu couldn't give up on her, just like he couldn't not love her. Dying together, for him, might be the best ending. Then you guys will die together. Su Wan's voice was still as cold as ice. Her fingers suddenly grew tin-sharp as a knife and went straight for the hearts of the two people. When Yang Zishi woke up, it was already noon of the next day. She held her head that still hurt a little and suddenly remembered the task that the system left before she fainted yesterday. Kill Yangwu? No, I can't do that. Over the years, in order not to be obliterated by the system, it's not that Yang Zishi didn't do things that went against her conscience, but that Yang Zishi couldn't help but contact the system in her heart. But no matter how she called out, the system refused to give her a response. She could only check all her current tasks on the system panel. Seeing the line of glittering characters on the mainline task, Yang Zishi's eyes suddenly lit up. Right, Dr. L. As long as I attack Dr. L and complete the mainline task, I can get a lot of points. At that time, I can discuss conditions with the system. Thinking of this, Yang Zishi immediately got up from the bed, simply packed up, and she went straight to Maple Leaf's laboratory. Su Rue, who had been locking his spiritual power on Yang Zishi, took back his spiritual power when Yang Zishi went to find Qi. Last night, they had the opportunity to directly kill Yang Zishi, but Su Wan didn't kill her. Su Rue never felt that Su Wan was a soft-hearted woman, but the word love was the wound in her heart and also her weakness. Obviously, Yang Wu's infatuation successfully hit Su Wan's heart. At this time, Su Rue suddenly had a little expectation, looking forward to Yang Zishi's choice, looking forward to Yang Wu's ending. It turned out that it felt good to have such a thing to look forward to. He began to understand Su Wan's mood, searching in the constant cycle of reincarnation, acting as a saboteur in the tasks again and again. What she wanted to do, perhaps it was never sabotage. What she wanted to witness was actually just the human heart. This was the first time that Su Rue had a brand new understanding of his mission enforcer identity. In the past, he was just coldly executing tasks in order to complete the task. But now, Su Rue not only began to truly integrate into every world, he also began to learn to experience every task with his heart, and even every person. Kanjia Base was unexpectedly winning again and again under the attack of the Alliance army, and there were countless mutated zombies and even infected people coming to Kanjia Base from all directions. This also included those ordinary people who yearned for a new life, yearned for strength, and yearned to be able to live on. 3 days was not a very long time. The people of Kanjia Base were already celebrating their victory in advance. And in these 3 days, Yang Zishi had been continuously brushing up favorable impressions in front of Qi, brushing until Qi was about to collapse. Elder sister, you're my elder sister, all right? You're definitely sent by God to play with me, right? You blabber 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 in my ear all day long. You call me a fake. Aloof. Really? How can I bear it? Seeing Qi's iceberg-like face gradually showing rich emotions, in fact, he was on the verge of collapse. On the night of the 3rd day, Yang Zishi finally couldn't help but call out to Qi before leaving. Dr. Qi, I have something to say to you. Qi, haven't you said enough? Despite his heart collapsing, on the surface, Qi still looked at Yang Zishi with a paralyzed face and coldly spat out a word. Speak? I. Facing the man's emotionless eyes, Yang Zishi's lips moved. I like you. These 4 words were actually very easy to say, but after saying it, Yang Zishi felt that her heart was empty. In her previous life, she liked Chu Feiyang so much, but in the end, she died in Chu Feiyang's hands. Now, she said I like you to the man in front of her, but in her heart, she was thinking about the life and death of another person. Oh, hearing Yang Zishi's words, Qi habitually answered with one word. After that, he stayed in place. Just now, Yang Zishi confessed to him? Wait a moment, let the Luan family calm down. You agreed? Yang Zishi heard Qi's answer and asked in disbelief. Qi, on the other hand, was still in a daze. A certain mad scientist who had been a straight-A student since he was a child and had never been in a relationship felt that he was still very shy and nervous after being confessed to by a girl, although he knew it was not true. Should I calmly accept it? Or should I domineeringly refuse? How about silence is golden? If you don't speak, I'll take it as you agree. While Qi was struggling, Yang Zishi had already made the final decision. Then she quickly left the laboratory. As she walked to her room, she used her spiritual force to contact the system in her sea of consciousness. The task of attacking Dr. L and the system was still in an incomplete state, which made Yang Zishi a little anxious. How could this be? Could it be that he didn't intend to accept me in his heart? Or something else went wrong? For example, I mistook someone else for someone else. Yang Zishi didn't dare to think about it anymore, because there was still 1 hour left before the time limit required by the system to obliterate Yang Wu. Yang Zishi, whose mind was in a mess, unknowingly walked to the door of Yang Wu's room. She had been busy conquering Dr. L for the past few days and had not seen Yang Wu for several days in a row. At this time, Yang Wu in the room looked scarred. Seeing him silently bandaging himself, Yang Zishi immediately rushed in angrily. Yang Wu, what are you doing? Miss. When Yang Wu saw Yang Zishi's figure, he froze, but then he showed his usual calm and steady expression. Eldest miss, what's the matter? In fact, he knew that the time was up. 3 days ago, Su Wan's cold words were still lingering in Yang Wu's ears. I'll give you one last chance. You still have 3 days left. 3 days' time was really short. Yang Wu wanted to see Yang Zishi more in the last time, but he didn't even see the corner of Yang Zishi's clothes these days. Yang Wu, who was already somewhat desperate, had to desperately fight on the battlefield. Perhaps this was the only value of his life. The atmosphere in the room was very depressing. Yang Zishi and Yang Wu looked at each other. Two people, one was waiting for the verdict of death, while the other was extremely anxious. The system, which had been silent for 3 days, just reacted again. The host failed to attack Dr. L. Perhaps it was because the system did not belong to this world. So apart from being able to capture Dr. L's aura, there was actually no way to distinguish the identity of the strongest person in this world, Dr. L, unless Yang Zishi really succeeded in attacking Dr. L. This way, because the original trajectory of this world was destroyed, it would gain a lot of spiritual power. This was also the criterion for the success of every mission that the system judged. Therefore, the system and whatnot was by no means omnipotent. Unsuccessful. These 3 words immediately made Yang Zishi's heart fall into an ice cave. System prompt. The mission to obliterate the insider Yang Wu has entered the countdown. If the host cannot complete the mission on time, his soul will be obliterated. 10, 9, 8. The cold mechanical countdown began to ruthlessly count down in Yang Zishi's mind. Yang Zishi stood in the same place, her hands trembling. 3, 2, 1. In the last 3 seconds, Yang Zishi's mind suddenly flashed a lot of fragments of her previous life. She saw the situation when she was about to die. She saw herself, who was just an ordinary person at that time, being ruthlessly thrown into a group of zombies. She saw Chu Feiyang ruthlessly leaving with Su Wan. Then she saw her body being ruthlessly and fiercely torn apart by the zombies. Right now, she was full of bitter hatred and could not feel any pain. At this time, she saw a familiar figure madly rushing over. That was Yang Wu. Yang Zishi unconsciously burst into tears. I'm sorry, Yang Wu, I'm sorry. I know. You love me. When the last second countdown ended, Yang Zishi smiled at Yang Wu while crying, Ah Wu, I love you too. So, I won't hurt you. Even if I die, I won't. In this last second, Yang Zishi suddenly discovered that her rebirth was meaningless. She did not cherish the person that she should cherish the most, did not grasp the feelings that she should grasp the most, the so-called revenge, the so-called power. Everything was just an obsession. For those illusory things, she gave up the feelings that she could easily obtain. If there was no this so-called female supporting reversal system, if she was simply reborn, together with Yang Wu, living a stable life in the end of the world, that would also be a kind of happiness. So what if she was the female lead? So what if she's a female supporting? Everyone has the right to freely control their own life and not be like her right now, being controlled by an ice-cold machine to do some things against her will. The so-called system was originally a machine. How could it understand human feelings? Just as Yang Zishi was waiting in despair to be obliterated by the system, an ice-cold female voice suddenly rang in her ears. Concentrate your spiritual power and attack the system in your sea of consciousness. Yang Zishi, as long as you still have the conviction to live and the determination to be together with Yang Wu, you can defeat it. Defeat it. From now on, dominate your own life. Become the true protagonist of your own life. Yang Zishi already had no time to identify who the owner of the voice was. She began to concentrate her spiritual power. As a level 6 ability user, her spiritual power was very strong. Right at this time, Yang Wu on the side also abruptly clenched Yang Zishi's hand. Through his warm palm, there was a steady flow of spiritual power entering Yang Zishi's body. Su Wan and Su Rue silently stood at the door of the room and watched as a grayish-white spiritual body was squeezed out of Yang Zishi's body. Su Rue sneered, and his overwhelming spiritual power enveloped the spiritual body in an instant. You are. Before a certain system could finish its last words, it was already destroyed by Su Rue's attack. A system that lost its host, sure enough, couldn't withstand a single blow. The moment that external system was destroyed, Su Wan's mind had already received the notification of the completion of the mission. The bug has been destroyed. The mission user can choose to leave the mission world at any time. This mission that seemed very difficult was actually completed so easily. This was something that Su Wan didn't even dare to think about when she just entered the mission world 4 years ago. If there was no Yang Wu, if Yang Zishi didn't choose to give up on the system, then based on their current strength, although Su Wan and Su Rue could win against Yang Zishi, once Yang Zishi hides in the system space and doesn't come out for 8 to 10 years, their mission will still fail. As the saying goes, the plans of the heavens are inferior to the plans of man. No matter how sophisticated the instrument is, it will never be able to calculate human feelings. In the end, Su Wan still chose to stay in the mission world. She still had 6 years. She wanted to use these 6 years to accompany Su Rue and complete his mission. Together, they watched the people who wandered from place to place in the end of the world live happily in the new era. In 6 years, Kangia Base has become the largest base in the human world. With the arrival of the new era, the whole world no longer has those zombies that bite people everywhere. Now, all that is left are new humans. They all have their own consciousness and thoughts. Although they still can only rely on energy cores to absorb nutrients and energy, other than that, these new humans are no different from other humans. So much so that the number of new humans in the whole world is far greater than ordinary humans. Greenleaf Research Institute eventually disappeared in the long river of history. Not many people still remembered the Dr. L, who once made people pale at the mention of his name. In the New World, the publicly recognized #1 laboratory was called the Maple Leaf Laboratory. Walking on the streets of the New World's capital, you can see 2 statues side by side in the distance. That was a statue that belonged to Yin Yu and Li Xiang. They created a new era and also obtained their own love and new life. How does it feel to be an unknown hero? Su Wan and Su Rue slowly walked on the long street. At this time, the sky was blue, and there were landscape trees that were as tall as a person growing on both sides of the street. 10 years after the end of the world, these common things in other worlds made people feel so precious and happy here. Unknown hero. No one knew that all the new drugs to suppress the virus, even the preparation to develop the human body's potential, the new energy cores and other high-tech things, were all from the hands of Dr. L. Dr. L, he will be written into the history books as a sinner of history. I have been to another end of the world before. Hearing Su Wan's words, Su Rue subconsciously tightened his grip on her hand. There's killing and plundering everywhere. Xiao Wan, I've been very happy here for the past 10 years. I feel like I've found something that I lost before. Every adult was once a child,
and every child was once innocent and flawless.
I also... Su Wan raised her head and smiled at Su Rue. I also found something that I once lost. It's very important, very important. Yang Wu took Yang Zishi to live a peaceful and secluded life that he wanted. In fact, after her rebirth, if Yang Zishi did not get the female supporting system, perhaps she would have already followed Yang Wu to live a peaceful life. The existence of the system aroused the desire and obsession in her heart, making her ignore the people around her. Fortunately, At the last moment, Yang Zishi was able to suddenly wake up. Regarding Yang Zishi, Su Wan did not hate her too much. Of course, in the end, if Yang Wu did not exist, Su Wan would never show mercy to Yang Zishi. It was Yang Wu's silent efforts and 2 lives that moved Su Wan. Just like Su Rue thought, Su Wan's heart had a soft spot, and Yang Wu's infatuation was precisely what Su Wan had been looking for. It has to be said that, from another point of view, Yang Zishi was lucky and also incomparably happy. Compared with her, the Chu Fei-yang of this life was tragic. People, this kind of habitual creature, can abandon others for themselves once, abandon them a second time. Then the third and fourth time will become particularly easy. The increasingly selfish Chu Fei-yang was destined to live alone in this life, unwilling to give his heart to others. How could he expect others to be devoted to him? Su Wan felt that Yang Zishi and Chu Fei-yang were like a pair of rhombus mirrors, reflecting her past, present, and future. At the end of the world, let people learn to cherish. This world also let Su Wan find back the confidence that she had lost. The 10-year time limit had already unknowingly approached. When the countdown ends, Su Wan and Su Rue will be forced to leave this world. Feeling her soul being pulled out of her body, Su Wan still looked at Su Rue with a gentle gaze. Su Rue, I will be in the next world, waiting for you. I will wait for you. Chapter 105. When Su Wan exited the mission world, Xin went to the headquarters for a meeting and hadn't returned yet. Checking her newly obtained 50,000 points on the communicator, Su Wan subconsciously adjusted the Lost Spaces mission list. In the past, she would stare at a certain name at the top of the shop in a daze. Today, she took a look as usual. Buried heart key. Disposable item, only used to open the buried heart box. A disposable item with a ridiculously high price. In the past, Su Wan had always taken this kind of thing as her goal. Something as precious as the buried heart key was called the buried heart box. In the entire lost time-space, only one person used this expensive luxury that made ordinary people flinch. That person was Su Su. My heart isn't here, so I won't love and won't hurt. Su Wan still remembered that day when Su Su pointed at his heart and said this to her with a calm expression. No heart, so there won't be love. No heart, so there won't be pain. Su Wan sighed and gently stroked her chest. Once upon a time, she thought that she no longer had a heart and had already forgotten how to love. This might be the difference between her and Su Su. He treated himself as a cold machine. Even his heart could be sealed. Su Wan couldn't be as ruthless as him from beginning to end. Lost Space, Time-Space Headquarters. When Xin came out of the conference room, she saw the unforgettable figure. He stood straight in front of the window, the sunlight outside scattered on his shoulders. Between the light and shadow, his elegant and otherworldly appearance seemed to be plated with a faint glimmer. Department Head Su. Xin hesitated, but still went forward to greet Su Su. Su Su looked down at Xin and smiled warmly. He was always so gentle and elegant, making people unable to see his true emotions. You're waiting for me? Xin was actually a bit uncertain, but there was no one in the conference room now. Because she was newly appointed, she was left behind to say a few words. By the time she came out, the others had already left. And, hearing Xion's question, Su Su nodded lightly. This made Xion a bit surprised, but then she thought of something. Do you have something to ask me? About Su Wan? Su Wan. Su Su's eyes narrowed. How was she recently? Although it was just a simple question, Su Su seemed to have made up his mind. It had been a very, very long time since he had been so conflicted. This feeling seems to be conflicted? After abandoning the 7 emotions and 6 desires for too long, he felt more like a robot, unable to truly understand the feelings of a human. However, he still cared a little. Back then, the woman who had wanted to perish together with him. As expected, hearing Su Su's question, Xian immediately narrowed her eyes and smiled. Su Wan is doing very well. Recently, she has been working very hard. Maybe one day, she will surpass me. At that time, when she comes to the headquarters for a meeting, Department Head Su, you can personally ask about her recent situation. Although they were in the same space-time, They didn't have any interaction because all the departments in the lost spacetime were separated. Seeing Suwon again. When Susu heard Yi Xian's words, he smiled faintly as usual. Department head Yi, don't belittle yourself. And, I think, it won't be long before she and I will soon meet again. Hearing Susu's answer, Yi Xian was also stunned. Only then did she suddenly remember that the headquarters triennial cross-department test was about to begin. 3 years ago, Suwon hadn't come here yet. Now, as the second in command of the plane destroyer, in this year's cross-department test, Suwon must attend, and Susu will definitely appear. Time passes so quickly. It's time for the test again. Does Department Head Su still have the confidence to win the championship again this year? In every cross-department test, each department would send 3 elite mission enforcers. Everyone would enter a mission world without a plot at the same time. At this time, everyone's golden fingers would be ineffective in this mission world. In the same world, there was no distinction between friend and foe, and it was difficult to distinguish between the real and the fake. Killing between different departments was allowed. The entire test was divided into 2 time spaces, the preliminary selection and the finals. The preliminary selection had a time limit. Once the time limit was up, the people who were still alive would advance smoothly, and the finals time space was even more cruel. A race against time to kill, the one who survived to the end was the winner. Ever since Susu became the number 1 of the plane repair department. After becoming the number 1, he had never lost. Over the years, almost all the participants of the plane destroyer headquarters had been killed by Susu, including Yi Xian herself. Thinking about it made her feel stifled. While Yi Xian was feeling stifled, Susu just smiled indifferently. I will do my best. You also have to work hard. As he spoke, he turned around and left without hesitation. Go all out to hell. Yi Xian felt that it was necessary for her to immediately rush back to find Suwon to discuss it and see if she could find a weakness of Susu. Even the tiniest weakness was a good thing. She didn't believe that Susu could really be like a precise machine and could be flawless. Unfortunately, in the end, Yi Xian was still disappointed. Because when she returned to the plane destroyer headquarters, she was told that Suwon had just entered the number 3 mission cabin to carry out a mission. Yi Xian, who heard the news, sighed, but couldn't help but be curious. Could it be that Suwon had feelings for the number 3 cabin? Why didn't she change the cabin? The actual situation was, Suwon forgot to tell Su Rue that she had been promoted, and the locator that Su Rue bought could only rely on her mission cabin to track her whereabouts. So, you guys understand. At this time in the mission world, Suwon hadn't opened her eyes yet and felt hot all over. This feeling was Suwon abruptly opened her eyes and saw a row of carved agarwood chairs. At this time, she was sitting on the ground, her palace dress in a mess. Suwon resisted the discomfort in her body and stood up with the help of a chair on the side. At this time, a humph sound suddenly came from behind her. Suwon turned her head and saw a meatball-like man wearing a blue brocade robe lying on the ground at this time. His face was red, and he was humming while tearing his clothes. Your mother. Suwon's gaze turned cold and some vague memories flashed in her mind. She didn't dare to stay in this troublesome place and stumbled out. Pushing open the vermilion wooden door with great difficulty, Suwon saw a secluded and long corridor. It was already the beginning of autumn, but the oncoming cold didn't make Suwon's mind sober. The abnormally ferocious medicinal effect made her body even more restless and uneasy. In the distance, Suwon already saw a group of vague shadows that seemed to be coming in her direction. There was no time to sort out the messy plot memory in her head. Suwon decisively turned around and ran in the opposite direction. She didn't know how long she ran. When the consciousness in her mind gradually blurred, a calm surface of water finally appeared in Suwon's line of sight. There was water. It was an artificial lake. Suwon's eyes brightened. She quickly ran to the lake and almost jumped down without thinking. You don't want to live anymore. Suddenly, a familiar and anxious male voice came from behind. Suwon's arm was firmly grabbed by someone. When she came back to her senses, her whole body was already locked in an ice-cold embrace. The cold air that hit her face made her instinctively feel very comfortable. Suwon rubbed against his embrace, and her hands unconsciously embraced the man's waist. Her somewhat upset heart finally calmed down, but that restless body became more and more unbridled. Su-won, I feel uncomfortable. I feel so uncomfortable. Su-won murmured and rubbed against Su-won's embrace again. Be good, it'll be okay in a while. I'll bring you away now. While speaking, Su-won had already wrapped Su-won's body with his cloak. Then, in a flash, his figure disappeared from the lakeside. In the early autumn night, the cold wind was already biting to the bone. Su-won was tightly held in Su-won's embrace, leaning against his cold chest, but she still felt unbearably hot. She involuntarily struggled a few times and her face unconsciously rubbed against Su-won's body. So hot. Don't move. Su-won's tone also sunk. He carried Su-won all the way over the high walls of Marquis Qingchuan-fu and finally landed in a small alley outside the Marquis Fu. In the dark alley, a luxurious carriage was parked. Guarding the carriage was a guard wearing a black outfit. Seeing Su-won's figure speeding over, that guard's face revealed a trace of shock. Master, you guard the entrance of the alley. Don't let anyone come near here. Leaving behind these words, Su-won had already turned into a purple afterimage, carrying Su-won and leaping into the carriage. The inside of the carriage was very spacious. The low cushion inside was covered with a soft golden velvet blanket. Su-rue carefully placed Su-won on the soft cushion. Before he could get up, Su-won's hands had already tightly hooked around his neck. Don't go. Her fair and slender arms were soft and warm, making Su-rue's mind waver for a moment. Right now, Su-won's face was red and the long hair on her forehead was loose and stuck to her fair face because of her sweat. Under the dim candlelight, Su-won slightly raised her chin. Her eyes were like water. Her expression blurred as she looked at the man in front of her. In Su-rue's impression, Su-won had always been very indifferent, sometimes even very cold. He had never seen her so emotional and seductive, even if he knew that the person in front of him right now was not the real Su-won. But inside this body lived her soul. The person who was looking at him like this and telling him not to go was his Xiao-won. As long as he thought of this, Su-rue felt his lower abdomen heat up, as if there was a ball of fire burning in his body. His breathing involuntarily became disorderly, but, thinking that Su-won was currently in an unconscious state, his remaining reason forced Su-rue to immediately calm down. Xiao-won, bear with it a bit, I'll help you. Woo. Su-rue originally wanted to say that he could help Su-won open up her acupuncture points and disperse the effects of the medicine in her body, but before he finished speaking, Su-won on the side had already come over in a daze and forcefully kissed Su-rue's lips. Su-won's consciousness had always been fuzzy. She felt that she was about to die from being burned. In the scorching sea of fire, she heard Su-rue say to her, I'll help you, just like in that illusion in the last world. In the boundless flames, Su-rue extended his hand towards her. Su-won wanted to say that she didn't need anyone to help her, but if that person was Su-rue, she didn't mind. Almost as soon as this thought welled up in her heart, Su-won's body had already reacted. She kissed Su-rue. Su-rue's lips were cold with a hint of sweetness, making Su-won feel very comfortable. Su-rue. Although her consciousness was fuzzy, Su-won still involuntarily called out Su-rue's name. Su-rue, kiss me? Do you know what you're doing? Su-rue's breathing quickened, but his gaze deepened, faintly looking at that face close at hand. No matter what she became, she was still his Xiao-won. In the sea of thousands of people, he could always see her at first glance and recognize her. What was she doing? Su-won somewhat didn't know what she was doing, but she somewhat uncomfortably twisted her body and continued to wrap around Su-rue's body. Su-rue, want me? If it's you, I'm willing. I'm truly willing, not making do or making do with a mistake. Just because the person in front of me is you, Su-rue. Some people said that the deepest feeling is companionship. Su-rue accompanied Su-won through one world after another. No matter what she became, even if she was a sinister-looking zombie, he had never abandoned her. Love doesn't start, but it goes deep. Su-won felt that the greatest fortune in her life was the Su-rue she met by chance in that world. Having this person, she would have no regrets in her life. Xiao Wan. Su Wan's words finally succeeded in defeating Su Rui's reason. Love is too deep, that's why he's so careful. And because love is too deep, he can sit calmly in front of anyone, but only towards her. Love, desire, deep affection. Chapter 106. Daqing Dynasty, Imperial Capital, Marquis Qingchuan Fu. In order to celebrate the triumphant return of Marquis Qingchuan's eldest son, Xin Yushu, from the border, Marquis Qingchuan Fu was decorated with lanterns and colored banquets. Almost all of the imperial relatives and nobles in the imperial capital came to support Shanjia today. Right now, the entire front hall of the Marquis Fu was filled with toasts, and the host and guests were enjoying themselves. Compared to the liveliness of the front hall, the rear courtyard of Marquis Qingchuan Fu was currently in a very awkward situation. Just half an hour ago, Marquis Jingning Fu's young miss, Su Wan, suddenly disappeared from the rear courtyard of the Marquis Fu. Because she was Shan Yushu's fiancée, the servants of Marquis Qingchuan Fu began to search for this future young madam with all their might. In the end, a new servant girl said that she saw young Miss Su go to the side room in the rear courtyard. Under her lead, Marquis Qingchuan's foreign, Yusher, Marquis Jingning's foreign, Lusher, as well as a group of official families' young ladies and furins majestically arrived at the side room that the servant girl mentioned. Before entering the door, they heard a sound that made people blush and their hearts beat rapidly coming from inside. Immediately, Marquis Qingchuan's foreign's face darkened and Marquis Jingning's foreign's complexion greatly changed as she quickly pushed open the door and entered. At this moment, the room was a mess. Two shining white bodies were entangled intensely. The young ladies at the door had never seen such an exciting scene before, so they all turned their heads and screamed. "You bastard!" Marquis Jingning's foreign, Lusher, thought that her daughter had suffered a vicious attack. While shouting herself hoarse, she rushed up and used both her hands to ruthlessly push away the man on the ground. When all the furins saw the faces of the two people on the ground having illicit relations, Lusher's face was startled, then immediately became ecstatic. Not her precious daughter, Xiao Wan. Me honor. At this time, Duxing's wife, Wangshe, who was originally enjoying the show, suddenly cried out with a change in expression. It turned out that the naked man on the ground with an excited expression was Duxing's only son, Chun Mian. On this side, the furins were experiencing twists and turns, their moods fluctuating greatly. On the other side, Su Wan felt like she was being tortured to death. In the dimly lit carriage, although Su Wan regained consciousness, her whole body felt as if it had been crushed. The pain was unbearable. "No, that's enough. It hurts." Su Wan's voice was hoarse, weakly calling out, but it made the man on top of her work even harder. "All right, I know you're in good health and you're skilled in martial arts. Your inner energy is deep. You definitely don't have kidney deficiency. But, General Su, it was really enough." She didn't know how much time had passed. The sky was getting darker and darker. Su Wan felt that she was going to be tossed around until her bones fell apart. "What car sex? I don't want to be human anymore, master." At this time, a low voice came from outside the carriage. "Fuck." Finally, a living person came. This voice was simply heavenly to Su Wan. "Master, His Majesty summons you." Inside the car, Su Rui's movement slowed down. A pair of eyes that were immersed in a dim light sunk somewhat discontentedly. "Tell him to wait." The guard was speechless. "Master, are you sure you're still normal right now?" "You go." Although Su Wan's body was already weak, she still took advantage of Su Rui's pause and gently grabbed his arm. "Send me back?" After saying these words, Su Wan completely fainted. "So tired, so painful, just let me die." The next day, Su Wan opened her eyes and discovered that she had already returned to Marquis Jingning Fu's boudoir. Right now, the sky was already bright. Lusher was still sitting in front of Su Wan's bed. Both her eyes were red. It seemed that she had cried for the entire night. "Mother." Su Wan opened her mouth. Her voice was hoarse. "My ill-fated daughter." Hearing Su Wan's hoarse voice, Lusher immediately felt sorrow in her heart. She took a handkerchief and started wiping her tears. In the end, which wretched bastard did this? It must be said that Lucifer's mood had been fluctuating greatly for a day and a night. First, her daughter went missing. She was only a bit anxious. Afterwards, the scene in the side room made Lucifer's mind somewhat collapse. She thought that her daughter's generation was ruined. Fortunately, in the end, there was no mishap and she discovered that she recognized the wrong person. But where did her darling daughter go? She searched the entire Marquis Qingchuan Fu, but she still couldn't find her daughter. In the end, it was the housekeeper who sent someone to report that eldest young miss had returned home. At that time, the person who came from the house stammered and his gaze flickered. Lucifer knew that something must have happened. When she hurriedly rushed home, she saw her daughter lying unconscious on the bed, her whole body covered with. In short, at that time, she only took a glance and Lucifer fainted. When she woke up in the middle of the night, she ran to Su Wan's bedside and cried to the heavens, extremely sorrowful. "Warner, tell Mother, in the end, who was it? Mother wants to ask Her Majesty the Empress to uphold justice for you." In the end, Lucifer was also a foreign of the Marquis Fu, and not an ordinary coarse woman. Yesterday, in the matter of Marquis Qingchuan Fu, although it was the servant girl who recognized the wrong person and the one who caused the scandal was Duke Xingguo's son and Marquis Qingchuan Fu's servant girl, this matter was obviously manipulated by someone behind the scenes. And his original target was undoubtedly Su Wan. I don't know who did it. Su Wan hesitated for a moment, her expression still unsettled from fright. "Don't know?" Lucifer sighed and wiped away the tears on her face. Her eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of coldness. Yesterday that man, do you still recognize him?" In fact, Lucifer wanted to ask her if she knew that man, but on second thought, if someone was really deliberately framing her, they would definitely find an unfamiliar face. Damn it, the precious daughter in her heart was ruined by an inexplicable man just like that. Su Wan subconsciously bit her lips. I don't know who he is." This sentence, Su Wan was not completely lying. In fact, she really did not have the chance to ask Su Wan's current identity. But thinking about the identity of those few supporting males in this world, his identity should be higher than hers. Seeing Su Wan's drooping eyes and somewhat lifeless expression, Lucifer also couldn't bear to continue asking, "Warner, you rest well? This matter must rot in your stomach. Don't let anyone know. Mother will help you. Think of a way. Don't worry. Mother will definitely let you marry into Marquis Qingchuan Fu as you wish. No one can harm you again." When Lucifer finally left, only Su Wan was left in the room. She slowly opened her eyes and absent-mindedly looked at the top of the bed. After she leaves this task, she must go and complain. Before entering the task, she clearly chose the time before the original owner lost her chastity, but as soon as she came in, she encountered this matter. The logistics department definitely did this on purpose. Cursing the entire logistics department from the bottom of her heart, Su Wan then slowly organized the main plot of this world in her mind. The female lead of this world was called Chen Qingjin, the eldest daughter of Marquis Qingchuan Fu. She was a reborn woman. In the previous life, she, who had no shrewdness, married the fifth prince, Qin Ting, whom she had always admired. In the end, she was schemed against by her husband and her younger sister, Chun Qingyao. Not only was the child in her womb slandered as a bastard and forcefully beaten, even she herself finally lost her life in a big fire. After being reborn, Chen Qingjin learned to pretend to be a pig to eat a tiger. She was innocent on the outside, but her heart was very black-bellied. In this life, she was no longer deceived by the trash man's hypocritical affection, and also no longer deceived and used by her poisonous younger sister. Since her younger sister and the trash man were mutually in love, she would put them together as a pair in advance, let the two of them look at each other until they were sick of each other, and then dog bite dog out of course. For such a demonic and wild reborn female lead, there was naturally no lack of a strategically talented and peerless male lead at her side, as well as a group of affectionate supporting males who were subdued by the female lead's skill and IQ. Chun Qingjin's wisdom and decisiveness attracted the attention of the second prince, Qin Yu. The two people probed each other to admire each other, and finally, the two loved each other and became a family. Of course, other than the genuine male lead, Qinyu, the other men were also inevitably attracted by the female lead's halo. His Highness the Crown Prince, Qinyu, the son of the current imperial military officer, Xiao Wei, and even Jin Qinwang, Qin Mu Yin, were all subjects under the female lead skirt. As for those cannon fodder supporting males who expressed appreciation for the female lead, let's not mention them. After talking for a long time, it seemed like there was nothing to do with Su Wan. In fact, the matter was like this. In this mission world, Su Wan's identity was not the male lead's ex, because the male lead and supporting males in this world were all keeping their chastity for the female lead, not touching meat and fish. Her identity was the female lead's older brother, Qin Yushu's fiancé, ex, in the previous life, the original body Su Wan, who had always liked Qin Yushu, smoothly married into Marquis Qin Chuan Fu and became Chen Qingjin's sister-in-law. Originally, Qin Qingjin and her older brother, Qin Yushu, had a very good relationship, but because Su Wan and Qin Qingyao were on good terms, she was influenced by Qin Qingyao and would always intentionally or unintentionally speak ill of Qin Qingjin beside her husband. And after Qin Qingjin married into the fifth prince, she was framed for having an illicit relationship with an imperial guard. Originally, Qin Yushu did not believe in this matter. He planned to personally investigate and seek an explanation for his younger sister, but because Su Wan had always been biased against Qin Qingjin and didn't like this little sister-in-law, she thought of every possible way to stop her husband from investigating this matter. In the end, it indirectly led to Qin Qingjin's wrong death. In Qin Qingjin's tragic past life, Su Wan should be counted as an accomplice. Of course, saying that she was an accomplice was a bit of a compliment to her. In the previous life, the original body Su Wan was a spoiled and brainless young miss. She was very easily toyed with by Qin Qingyao, who was good at scheming and used as a gun, and Su Wan hated Qin Qingjin. 1. It was because Qin Qingyao was obstructing her, and 2. It was because she liked Qin Yushu too much. So even if Qin Qingjin was Qin Yushu's younger sister, because her husband cared too much about his younger sister, Su Wan really didn't like Qin Qingjin from the bottom of her heart. As for the matter of Qin Qingjin being framed, with the intelligence of the original body, she simply couldn't see it. She didn't allow her husband to stick up for Qin Qingjin. 1. It was because she disdained this kind of woman who had an affair with others from the bottom of her heart. 2. For her husband's future, she didn't want him to have any conflict with the fifth prince. The original body might have always felt that what she did was right, but in the eyes of the reborn Qin Qingjin, Su Wan was also unforgivable. Not only was she an accomplice, she was also a woman without talent, virtue, and no brain like her. She simply wasn't worthy of her older brother. Starting over, Qin Qingjin decided to destroy her older brother and Su Wan's engagement. As a result, there was that scene when Su Wan had just entered the mission. The drug was found by Qin Qingjin, and the servant girl who called the various Furins over was also arranged by her in advance. Originally, Qin Qingjin wanted Su Wan's reputation to hit rock bottom, and to have no face to marry into Marquis Qin Chuan Fu again. In fact, if Su Wan didn't enter the mission at this time, the original body's life would have followed Qin Qingjin's plan step by step. Her scandal in Marquis Qin Chuan Fu was exposed on the spot, and from then on her reputation hit rock bottom. She could only obediently marry Duke Xinggua's son, Chen Mian. Chen Mian was a famous idiot in the imperial capital. He was stupid but had great strength, and his temper was also very irritable. Not long after the original body married, because she couldn't endure her husband's punches, kicks, and foolishness, she had an illicit relationship with a guard. This matter was very quickly known by Duke Xinghua, but family scandals must not be spread in public. In order to save his face, Duke Xinghua finally suppressed this matter. But Su Wan's days in Duke Xinghua Fu were really getting worse day by day. Not long after, she was driven crazy. Chapter 107. Su Wan rested in her boudoir for a whole day. Because the maids in the courtyard were all servants of the Fu, Lu Shi was very relieved to let them take care of Su Wan. To the outside world, Lu Shi announced that Su Wan had caught a cold in Marquis Qin Chuan Fu that day and left early because her body was unwell. And these few days, she had been resting in bed at home, and it was not convenient to meet guests. Just like this, for 3 days in a row, Su Wan did not leave her room. and those kiss marks of different depths left by Su Rue on her body no longer looked so obvious. Speaking of which, since Su Rue could send her back 3 days ago without anyone noticing, then he should know where she lived, right? Not showing his face these 3 days, what was he trying to do? Men are really creatures that don't admit when they pull up their pants? This made Su-won feel very irritable. Of course, it was not only Su-won who was in a bad mood right now. Chun Qing-jin's mood these few days was also not very good. Originally, according to her plan, she could easily make Su-won lose her reputation, but who knew that halfway through the matter, there would be a slip-up. The person who secretly met with Qin Mian changed from Su-won to a maid of Marquis Qingchuan Fu, and that maid was exactly Chun Qing-jin's personal maid, Yu-ru. Yu-ru was Qin Qing-jin's confidant. In the previous life, she married into Qing Wangfu together with her. When she lost power in the Wangfu, only Yu-ru stayed by her side. Even when she lost her child and her life, Yu-ru also followed her on the spot. Chun Qing-jin had no choice but to cherish this kind of loyal servant. In this life, she had already planned to find a suitable marriage for Yu-ru to let her live a comfortable life. Who knew that such a thing would happen now? Qin Mian and Yu-ru were caught by everyone on the spot. Duke Shenghua Foreign, Wang Shi, insisted that Yu-ru harbored evil intentions and took the initiative to seduce her son. This kind of immoral matter happened. According to Marquis Qingchuan Fu's family law, Yu-ru should be executed. In the end, it was Chen Qing-jin who begged bitterly and her brother Chen Yushu who helped at the side that Marquis Qingchuan waived the family law and directly sent Yu-ru to Duke Shenghua Fu with the slave contract. With Yu-ru's background, when she arrived there, the best situation was that she could only be a Tong Fong maid. Of course, this was under the premise that she was not beaten to death by Chen Mian. Qing-jin, are you still worried about Yu-ru's matter? When Chen Yushu walked into the room, he just happened to see Chun Qing-jin's tightly knitted brows. Hearing his big brother's voice, Chun Qing-jin came back to his senses. Looking at his handsome big brother in front of him, Chun Qing-jin sighed. Big brother, is there really no other way? Chen Yushu shook his head, then walked to Chen Qing-jin's side and sat down. Qing-jin, I have already heard the residence's steward report the matter that day. I feel that there is something fishy about it. Do you think that it could be a trap that someone deliberately set up? This kind of filthy matter happened in Marquis Qingchuan Fu. It made Shin Yushu's heart very uncomfortable. Moreover, linking the whole matter together, it was very easy to see the flaws in it. Why did the servant girl see Su-won? But why did everyone see Qin Mian and Yu-ru when they rushed in? Where did Su-won go that night? What did he do? Although he wasn't very familiar with his fiancée in his heart, Su-won was still Shin Yushu's future wife after all. Shin Yushu still cared a bit about matters involving her. A trap. Hearing Shin Yushu's question, a strange look flashed past Chun Qing-jin's eyes. The whole matter was planned by her, but it wasn't like this in her plan. On that day, in order to be absolutely safe, after Chen Qing-jin sent Yu-ru to lead a servant girl over and saw Su-won's figure, she specially instructed Yu-ru to secretly watch from a distance, fearing that any slip-ups would appear. In the end, according to Yu-ru, that day's matter originally went very smoothly, but before everyone reached the scene of the incident, Su-won suddenly rushed out of that room. At that time, Yu-ru also panicked and didn't know what to do. As a result, in the next second, she only felt a pain at the back of her neck and she fainted. When she woke up, she was already with Chen Mian, and at that time, there was another person in the courtyard, and this person specially sent Yu-ru to Chen Mian's room. There were two possibilities. First, he used this kind of method to tell her that he knew that the matter was arranged by her, warning her not to act blindly without thinking. Second, he might not know the truth of the matter and just happened to encounter it. Because he was her enemy, he took the opportunity to send Yu-ru to Chen Mian's room. His goal was to make her lose Yu-ru, this confidant. These few days, after Chun Qing-jin thought about it, she felt that the second possibility was a bit higher. And now, she suspected that this matter might have been done by Chen Qing-yao. If it was really done by her, then it was still all right. At least she had long regarded her as an enemy that would not rest until she died. If it was someone else, with this kind of potential enemy, it really made Chen Qing-jin unable to eat or sleep in peace at the side. Chen Yushu saw that Chen Qing-jin was in a daze again. He couldn't help but blame himself. He really shouldn't have discussed this kind of topic with Qing Jin. In Qin Yushu's eyes, his younger sister had always been very pure and kind. Those scheming and crafty things in the residence had always been insulated from Chen Qingjin, just like the current Marquis Qingchuan Fu. Although Furan Yushu was only father's second wife and not his and Qingjin's biological mother, these past few years Yushu treated them brother and sister equally, even better than she treated her own biological daughter, Chen Qingyao. Speaking of Chen Qingyao's younger sister, she inherited Yushu's beauty and talent. At a young age, she was already unparalleled in the capital and could be considered a celebrity in the imperial capital. Unfortunately, Qin Yushu didn't really like this kind of flamboyant person. In comparison, he still liked his own biological younger sister, Chen Qingjin. After accompanying Chen Qingjin in a daze for a while, Qin Yushu planned to leave because of his heavy official duties. As a result, he had just gotten up when he was stopped by his younger sister. "Big brother, do you like young Miss Su?" In the previous life, Chen Qingjin didn't see how much her older brother liked Suwan. On the contrary, Suwan relied on her title as Marquis Qingchuan Fu's young foreign to go against her a lot. Although at the end of the previous life, her older brother didn't have the time to clear her grievances, Chen Qingjin knew that her older brother still loved her dearly. If it wasn't because he married Suwan, the two siblings wouldn't have ended up separated by yin and yang, unable to see each other before they died. In this life, no matter what, she wouldn't let Suwan enter Chanjia's front door. Young Miss Su, because he led troops outside all year round, Qin Yushu very rarely returned to the imperial capital. His and Suwan's marriage was also set by both parents. Actually, in his mind, Suwan was only a vague shadow. He could only remember her approximate appearance. As for the current her, whether she was beautiful or ugly, he wasn't clear. "Qingjin, you don't like young Miss Su?" Qin Yushu felt his younger sister's unhappy mood and couldn't help but ask. "I just feel that she is not worthy of older brother, that's all." Chen Qingjin only smiled and did her best to make her tone sound very normal. This girl. Maybe other people even think that your older brother is not worthy of her?" Chen Yushu heard his younger sister's words and said to himself in amusement. At the side, Chen Qingjin secretly curled her lips. How could her own older brother not be worthy of that idiot? Chapter 108. On the fifth day of Suwan's recuperation, her courtyard finally welcomed its first guest, Marquis Qingchuan Fu's second daughter, Chen Qingyao. Chen Qingyao was just 15 years old this year. It was precisely the age of a flower. Seeing Chen Qingyao wearing a goose-yellow palace dress gracefully appear in front of her, Suwan only weakly gave her a faint smile. "Wan Jiejie, is your cold better?" Chen Qingyao's voice was mellow, and her tone was deeply concerned. Coupled with her beautiful countenance and pair of watery eyes, she looked extremely sincere. It was no wonder that she could trick the original owner into staring blankly. "My body is already fine. I've let Qingyao Mimi worry." Suwan lowered her eyes. Although her mouth said that it was no big deal, her expression that had a hidden secret had already fallen into Chen Qingyao's eyes. Although Chen Qingyao was not reborn, she was a very scheming girl. Regarding Suwan's cold, she had long been suspicious. It's just that she never had the chance to verify it. Hearing Wan Jiejie say that, "I feel relieved." Chen Qingyao gave Suwan a pure and flawless smile, then turned her face and slightly sighed. "Wan Jiejie, Yushu Gij actually also wanted to come and see you. It's just that it's not easy for him to return to the capital once, and he has a lot of official business to deal with. Moreover, at home, there's also Qingjin Jiejie who keeps pestering him to accompany you. He really doesn't have the time." Chen Qingyao's voice was very low. Although she was explaining for Chen Yushu, in reality, she was instigating the relationship between Suwan and Chen Qingjin. When Suwan heard her words, her gaze flashed. Is it like this? No wonder he didn't come even once. I still thought that he... Speaking up to hear, Suwan subconsciously raised her hand and tightened her collar. And Chen Qingyao also glanced at Suwan's movements. Her sharp eyes immediately discovered that there was a shallow red mark on Suwan's neck. Could this be connecting the matter that happened in Marquis Qingchuan Fu? Chen Qingyao immediately had a guess in her heart. It's just that she didn't dare to rashly say this guess and still needed to verify it many times. Thinking of this, Chen Qingyao's gaze flashed and she once again opened her mouth, seemingly carelessly. In a few days, it will be the day of the autumn hunt. In the past, it was Gidge who participated and Jie and I want to join in the fun. This year, I don't know why Jie also insisted on participating in the hunt. At that time, I'm afraid Gidge will have to divert his attention to take care of her. And this year, it just so happens that the second Imperial Prince and the fifth Imperial Prince are also participating in the hunt. I'm afraid that this year, Yu Shu Gidge will lose the title of King of Hunters. Chen Qingyao's words were very artistic. First, it reminded Su Wan that they were going to hunt, and she shouldn't forget to join in the fun. Second, it revealed to her that Chen Qingjin had always been pestering Chen Yushu. And the third point was even more thought-provoking. Why did Chen Qingjin, who had never participated in the hunt in the past, have to go on stage this year? Was it because there were two Imperial Princes participating, and she wanted to attract the attention of His Highness the Imperial Princes? Suwan couldn't help but admit that the 15-year-old Chen Qingyao was already an expert at playing with people's hearts. She was like this, noiselessly and noiselessly, unfavorable words and thoughts towards Chen Qingjin, seeping into Su Wan's heart bit by bit. Therefore, after marrying into Chen Jia in the past life, Su Wan extremely rejected Chen Qingji. And after Chen Qingjin met with an accident, Su Wan also resolutely did not believe that Chen Qingjin was framed by someone. Chen Qingyao, you really have a good hand at washing people's minds. In order to let Chen Qingyao classmate have a full sense of accomplishment, when Su Wan heard her words, her gaze immediately changed and her hands unconsciously tightly grabbed the brocade quilt on her body. I believe in Yu Shu. I will go and cheer for him. He will win. And, seeing that her goal was achieved, Chen Qingyao gave Su Wan a comforting smile. I should also believe in Yu Shu Gidge. When the time comes, let's cheer for him together. After sending off Chen Qingyao, Lucier immediately appeared in Su Wan's room. What did Qinjia's girl come over for? In this kind of situation right now, Lucier was very vigilant towards anyone in Chanjia. She couldn't find the real culprit who framed her daughter, but that person was most likely someone from Chanjia. And because she knew her daughter's infatuation towards Chen Yushu, Lucier didn't want Qinjia to find out in advance that her daughter had already lost her chastity. Qingyao Mimi came to visit a patient. In passing, she reminded me not to forget to go to Pushan hunting ground to watch the autumn hunt in a few days. Su Wan answered Lucier's question, and once she heard about the autumn hunt, Lucier's gaze suddenly brightened. Wanara, Nyang Qin remembers that your horsemanship is also not bad. How about you simply go to the hunting ground this year to join in the fun, if you can be together with Chen Yushu? Lucier leaned over to Su Wan's ear and whispered a few words. When Su Wan heard her words, the corner of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. Lucier actually wanted her to find an opportunity in the hunting ground to put on a show in front of Chen Yushu. It would be best if she could tangle with Chen Yushu and let him be alone with her, a man and a woman, and then directly cook the rice and whatnot. Do you need to work so hard? I'm definitely not your biological child. I'm definitely a gift from topping up your phone bill. Towards Lucier, this kind of mother who has been focused on tricking her daughter for 10,000 years, Su Wan was also speechless. Do you think Chen Yushu is stupid? If it really was XXO, what if he found out that it wasn't the original goods? Moreover, Su Wan was extremely resistant to having intimate contact with a man other than Su Rue. No, including Su Rue. Thinking of Su Rue who hadn't shown up for a few days in a row, Su Wan became even more irritable. Autumn hunt and whatnot. She will definitely participate in it. She was completely not interested in cooking the rice and whatnot with Chen Yushu, but she was full of interest towards another matter. At this time, Imperial Capital, Jian Wangfu, Master, you want to go to Pushan hunting ground? To hunt? The eunuch in charge of the Wangfu looked at his master's small stature and somewhat didn't dare to believe it with his eyes wide open. What? The purple-clothed man sitting on the high chair lazily raised his eyes, his tone ice-cold and gloomy. Ben Wang wants to go to his own hunting ground to hunt. Do I still need your approval? The biting cold aura and coercion made the steward on the side immediately kneel on the ground with a head full of cold sweat. This servant doesn't dare. Please forgive me, Wang Ye. Get out. Yes. After the steward with a head full of sweat hurriedly ran away, the man on the high chair lowered his gaze again. So irritable. I really want to kill someone. What should I do? Thinking of his current identity, an idle prince without any military power, a delicate and weak body, casually killing people and whatnot, it seems a bit inappropriate. But Rue still felt irritable. Why does every female lead have a delicate and weak body and a nearly devilishly intelligent dead male antagonist by her side? And he had unfortunately become this type in this world. Rue, who had been on the battlefield since childhood and held a large number of troops in his hands, always felt that holding military power in the palm of his hand was the safest thing to do. But now, he became a literary prince. As the current emperor's youngest imperial brother, the two brothers, one literary and one military, stabilizing the country and whatnot, who are you trying to deceive? The dead emperor had so many sons who were both skilled in both literature and martial arts. Why did he always put his own imperial brother in an important position? And for many years, he never gave him a fief and let him stay in the imperial capital to live. This seemed to be the emperor's favor, but in reality, wasn't it just a disguised form of house arrest? You're so smart, I don't feel at ease leaving you alone outside, so it's better for you to obediently stay under my eyelids. With such a black-bellied older brother, it was no wonder that the original body had always been depressed. His body also couldn't take it, looking like he was going to die at any time. Master. Just as Rue was inwardly ridiculing, a ghostly shadow appeared in front of Rue. This was one of his personal shadow guards. What's the matter? This shadow guard was secretly arranged by Rue and Marquis Jingning Fu to protect Wan's safety. He would regularly report to Rue about the matters in Marquis Jingning Fu. Master, today Marquis Qingchuan Fu's second young miss went to Marquis Jingning Fu to visit young Miss Su. After that, Marquis Jingning Foreign called the Fu's coachman to pick out a few good horses to feed alone. Afterwards, she also ordered the tailor to make a brand new autumn outfit for young Miss Su. It seems that young Miss Su should be participating in this year's autumn hunt. As expected. Hearing the shadow guard's answer, Rue heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He knew that Wan would definitely participate in this time's autumn hunt. When they meet again. Cough cough. Rue suddenly felt a bit apprehensive. These few days, he didn't dare to appear in front of Wan. After all, Wan's mind was somewhat unclear that night. Moreover, after she regained her consciousness, it seemed that she had shouted at him to stop several times. But he simply can't stop, okay? Afterwards, Rue entered the palace to deal with the emperor's older brother for a while. On the way back to the Wangfu, his mind kept flashing with the plot of certain novels and certain TV dramas that he had seen before. When this kind of thing happened to the female lead Darren, they would generally, female lead Darren 1. I don't want to live anymore. I don't have the face to see people. I'm committing suicide, Rue. My family Wan won't be so unreasonable, female lead Darren 2. You actually dare to treat me like this. I want to perish together with you. Rue. My family Wan won't be so impulsive, female lead Darren 3. Humph, humph, humph. Come over, take off your own pants. This miss will castrate you. Rue. My family Wan won't be so violent? Are you sure? Well, no matter what, our fearless General Su was terrified for the first time and directly dealt with himself like a tortoise hiding in its shell. What if Wan really hates me? It doesn't matter if I kill him or not, castrate him or whatever. I don't want it, General Su. You're really thinking too much. As a result, these few days, Rue didn't dare to appear. But in fact, he sent people to monitor Wan's every move every day. He and Wan were both very familiar with the mission's plot and knew that in a few days, there would be a scene between the male lead and female lead in the hunting ground. This kind of scene, presumably, Wan wouldn't miss it, and himself. Chapter 109. In the blink of an eye, it was the appointed hunting day. Wan changed into the hunting clothes that Lucier specially ordered the tailor to make for her. The sapphire blue outfit made her look especially spirited. Lucier was extremely satisfied with Wan's outfit today. Seeing Su Wan neatly mount the horse, Lucier hastily ordered the guards behind her to protect the young miss and safely send her to the hunting ground. Until she saw Su Wan riding the horse far away, Lucier sighed and returned to the Marquis Fu, turning her head back 3 times with each step. Pushan hunting ground was still 100 li away from the imperial capital. Even if it was a Fergana horse, it would still take an hour to arrive. Because she deliberately left early, Su Wan was not in a hurry. On the official road leading to the hunting ground, what entered her eyes was the golden color of autumn. Golden trees and golden leaves. Su Wan unhurriedly admired the beautiful scenery as she advanced. The 2 guards behind her could only urge their horses to follow behind Su Wan. Not long after, the sound of horse hooves rang out on the official road. That sound came from far behind the 3 people. The orderly troops stepped on the spacious official road, setting off bursts of dust. They're here. Su Wan couldn't help but look back. That troop of people and horses was already getting closer and closer. Black soft armor, red official boots. Impressively, it was Shen Yushu's Black Tiger Army's regular attire. Right now, there was even a horse carriage following behind their troops. Presumably, the person sitting in the horse carriage should be Chen Qingyao, who was not good at riding. As for Chen Qingjin, she was currently also wearing a black outfit. She had the appearance of a woman not losing to a man. Even though she was just 16 years old and still had a trace of childishness on her face, her gaze was calmer and more indifferent than any other people of the same age. Chen Qingjin also rode a horse alone and followed at Shen Yushu's side. The 2 people were surrounded by the Black Tiger Army's guards at the very center. Compared to the surrounding Black Tiger Army, the heroic spirit between Chen Qingjin's brows was in no way inferior. Su Wan couldn't help but recall that the male lead, Qin Yu, seemed to have been subdued by the female lead's elegant demeanor in this hunt. He had a bit more interest and attention towards her. As for the scum 5th Prince Qin Ting, he planned to use his handsome and gentle appearance to capture Chen Qingjin's heart from the beginning. Of course, his goal was only to rope in Marquis Qingchuan Fu and Chen Yushu's Black Tiger Army. In the previous life, Qin Ting smoothly used his own sweet words to coax and swindle Chen Qingjin, who had no shrewdness in her heart. And Chen Qingyao, who looked innocent on the outside but was actually always jealous of Chen Qingjin's position as D-daughter. After Qin Ting and Chen Qingjin got married, she took advantage of her identity and frequently went in and out of the Qinhuang Fu. On one side, she planned to consign Chen Qingjin to eternal damnation, while on the other, she quietly seduced Qin Ting. In the end, the scum naturally couldn't resist the temptation and was hooked by Chen Qingyao. Chen Qingjin was also tragically abandoned and was finally buried in a sea of fire. Of course, this was merely the past events of her previous life. Now that Chen Qingjin had been reborn, not only did she see through the true faces of the scum men and cheap women, but she was also like Zhuge Liang in this life. Wherever she went, she would be able to calculate and solve any schemes and tricks that she encountered. If every person who died of stupidity in the previous life could immediately have their IQ soar after being reborn, their battle power would be off the charts. Su Wan felt that the rebirth department would absolutely be busy to death, making her want to be sent back to the furnace to be remade once again. Jia. At this time, Chen Yushu's troops had already arrived in front of Su Wan. Nay. Chen Yushu and Chen Qingjin coincidentally pulled on the reins at the same time, their gazes all looking towards Su Wan. Today, Su Wan was wearing a sapphire blue outfit. In the gloomy and austere atmosphere, there was a bit of youthful aura. It had to be said that Lucier's aesthetics was also very good. Today, she not only helped Su Wan settle her clothes, even that refreshing bun on her head and that pure white snow satin that tied her hair were all personally chosen by Lucier. Compared to Chen Qingjin's pretended to be deep black, the difference in superiority was obvious. Chen Yushu didn't expect to meet Su Wan here. Just now, from afar, he saw her leisurely and contented beautiful figure standing on the horse. At that time, although it was only a slender figure, that kind of leisurely and contented aura, that head of elegant black hair, and the pure white snow satin, still dazzled Chen Yushu's eyes. As a result, when he came closer and saw this somewhat familiar delicate and pretty face, a name immediately appeared in Chen Yushu's mind, Su Wan. Marquis Jingning Fu's daughter, his fiancée. In the past, Chen Yushu had no feelings towards this marriage alliance and didn't even have any expectations. But now, merely this glance made him suddenly have a different kind of favorable impression towards the young girl in front of him. Yushu Ji, Qing Jin Mimi, what a coincidence ah. After Su Wan saw the two people, she immediately smiled brilliantly at the Chun family's brother and sister. It is very coincidental. Chun Yushu also gently nodded at Su Wan. Only Chen Qingjin, who was at the side, although she was also smiling, her eyes were filled with coldness. Of course, she knew that Su Wan specially waited here for her and her brother. Also, looking at her attire, she knew that she was meticulously prepared. It seems that she really somewhat underestimated this idiot. Her heart of marrying into the Chen family was really resolute. However, she was probably destined to be disappointed in this lifetime. Since we've met, let's go to the hunting grounds together. Chen Yushu saw that Su Wan only brought 2 guards with her, and he muttered to himself before raising his own suggestion. Hearing Chen Yushu's words, Su Wan revealed a rare trace of a little girl's embarrassment. Actually, my horsemanship is a bit bad. I ride slowly and will drag you guys down. No harm. Seeing Su Wan's expression, Chen Yushu smiled without minding. What does this matter? It's still early and we're not in a hurry. That's really great. Appropriately revealing a pleasantly surprised expression, Su Wan immediately joined Chen Yushu's group. Pretending not to see Chun Qingjin's somewhat gloomy expression, Su Wan minded her own business and struck up a conversation with Chen Yushu. From the life at the border to the newly opened winery in the imperial capital, Su Wan and Chen Yushu chatted merrily and wittily the whole way. Unknowingly, she replaced Chen Qingjin's position at Chen Yushu's side. When the sun rose high in the sky, the group of people finally arrived at the periphery of Pushun hunting ground. Right now, a luxurious and imposing carriage was parked outside the hunting ground. The large Jin character on the door was exceptionally dazzling. It's Jin Qinhuang's carriage. Chen Yushu was slightly surprised. Although this Pushun hunting ground was given to Jin Qinhuang by His Majesty last time, all the civil and military officials in the court knew that Jin Qinhuang was weak from a young age and was not good at riding and shooting. He rarely appeared in this place. This carriage. When Su Wan saw the carriage, her pupils also shrank. This carriage. Cough cough. She had some impression of it. At this time, the curtain of the carriage was slightly lifted. Su Rue was sitting in the carriage. From afar, he saw Su Wan and Chen Yushu riding side by side on horseback, talking with fervor and assurance. Especially when he saw Chen Yushu looking at Su Wan with gentle admiration in his eyes, Su Rue couldn't help but want to kill someone. At this time, the group of people had already arrived in front of the carriage. Chen Yushu was the first to dismount and slightly cupped his hands towards Su Rue's carriage. Is the person inside the carriage Your Highness Jinwang? It is Bin Wang. When Su Rue heard Chen Yushu's words, he immediately raised his hand and completely lifted the curtain in front of him, revealing that exceptionally handsome but slightly ice-cold face. Because Qin Mu Yan's character was set up to be frail and sickly, the current Su Rue's complexion looked very pale and really looked somewhat ill. This lowly official pays respect to Wang Ya. Seeing that the person inside the carriage was Jin Wang himself, Chen Yushu immediately respectfully saluted, and the people behind him also followed and saluted together. Su Wan secretly clenched her teeth and suppressed the irritation in her heart. When she raised her head, her expression was still the same as usual. Right now, it was as if she couldn't see Su Rue at all. Her eyes were filled with Chen Yushu's shadow. Su Rue, I endure. Jin Qinhuang, did you also come to hunt? Unexpectedly encountering Su Rue here made Chen Qingjin suddenly ask a question. In the memories of her previous life, Jin Qinhuang seemed to have never appeared in this hunt. And, hearing Chen Qingjin's words, the coldness in Su Rue's eyes flashed. Su Rue knew that the matter that night was Chen Qingjin's handiwork. If it was the Su Rue of the past, Chen Qingjin definitely wouldn't be able to live until today. Of course, right now, Su Rue also really wanted to chop her with a knife. But once something happened to Chen Qingjin or the male lead, he reckoned that Su Wan would directly leave this mission world. This wasn't what Su Rue wanted to see. At least, He had to wait until Su Wan was no longer angry at him before this group of eyesores could die. Chapter 110. The coldness in Su Rui's eyes disappeared in a flash. Although Chen Qingjin felt something, she thought that it was her misconception. After all, she understood that Jin Qinhuang of the previous life very well. That was a good imperial uncle who sincerely thought for the imperial family, devoted himself to his utmost until his death, resourceful, amiable, and approachable. And at this time, facing Chen Qingjin's doubts and the respectful appearance of everyone in front of him, Su Rui's expression was as usual and his voice was as unperturbed as the original owner's. Recently, Bin Wang's chest has been a bit stuffy in the fu. Today's weather is just right, and I wanted to go out of the capital for a walk. When I reached the outskirts of the capital, I suddenly remembered that Qin Yu mentioned that he would come here to hunt today. Bin Wang conveniently came over to watch the excitement. Cough cough. Speaking up to hear, Su Rui suddenly coughed violently. His originally pale face flashed with a sickly bright red. The people at the side couldn't help but hold their breaths along with his coughing. Jin Qinhuang's body was really weak. When everyone looked at Su Rui with heartache and awe, Su Wan could only inwardly roll her eyes. Your acting skills aren't bad. Humph. Why don't you use your internal strength to force out some blood? As a result, Su Wan was ridiculing him when Su Rui really coughed up blood over there. Screw your sister's telepathy. Seeing the trace of blood at the corner of Su Rui's lips and the smear of red on the white silk handkerchief in his palm, Chen Yushu's expression became even more solemn. I still hope that Wang Ye will take care of your body. Daqing still needs you. Su Rui, your mother, you speak as if I'm going to die. I won't die even if you die. I'll continue to endure. Fortunately, at this time, the fifth prince and the second prince's troops also arrived. Everyone's attention was no longer on Su Rui. As the male lead of this world, the second prince Qin Yu was absolutely graceful and had an extraordinary bearing. And as a scum man, the fifth prince also possessed a lot of scum men's outstanding characteristics. For example, he had a good-looking little gigolo face, thin lips, sexy and fickle. Because Su Rui's carriage was there, the two people first paid their respects to their imperial uncle. Speaking of which, Su Rui's current physical age was only 27 years old, only 7 years older than Qin Yu. But because of his seniority in the entire capital, besides His Majesty and the Empress Dowager, there was no one who didn't greet him. Su Wan disappeared. Where did Miss Su go? Su Rui couldn't help but ask in a low voice. The imperial bodyguard who had been following the carriage immediately replied respectfully, Master, Miss Su has already entered the hunting grounds with young Master Shun, a man and a woman alone in the wilderness. Su Rui, endure. Endure my ass. Haven't you heard that there's no need to endure anymore when you can't endure anymore? Turn around and descend the mountain. Coldly ordering, Su Rui immediately put down the carriage curtains at this time. In the Pushun hunting grounds, because the people participating in the hunt had all arrived, everyone rode their horses and entered the dense forest of the hunting grounds. In order to ensure the fairness of this hunt, everyone's hunting bow and arrows were uniformly distributed outside the hunting grounds. Su Wan and Chen Qingjin were the only two females participating in this hunt. The two people were not to be outdone, and each received 30 arrows. Although the two people had a smile on their faces, people with sharp minds had long noticed the thick smell of gunpowder between the two women. Chen Qingjin. Humph, just based on an idiot like you also wants to marry my brother? Simply an idiot's ravings. Whatever dirty trick you think it is, I won't let you have your way. Su Wan. Humph, you actually dared to drug me. This time you're out of luck. I want you to relive your youth in this life and let you deeply understand the true meaning of living worse than death. Su Jiejia, please. Qingjin Mimi, you first. On the horse's back, the two people smiled gently. Chen Yushu at the side didn't seem to notice the undercurrent surging between the two people in the slightest. On the contrary, Qin Yu, who was riding on the horse not far away, looked at the three people's receding figures. He subconsciously rubbed his chin and smiled. Interesting, really interesting. Softly muttering to himself, Qin Yu turned his horse around and headed towards the other direction of the forest. The sun rose high and the mountain breeze hit their faces. Suwon and Qinjia's brother and sister entered the hunting grounds together, but because they had to gallop in the process of hunting, Chun Qingjin specially chose a different direction from Suwon's prey and continuously called Qin Yushu for help. As a result, as they walked, Suwon got separated from the two of them. Regarding this point, Suwon didn't care. Actually, she came here today to watch the excitement. Because according to the plot of the task that Suwon knew, in order to win the beauty's affection during this hunt, Qin Ting had already made a series of arrangements. He first sent people to disperse Qin Yushu and Chan Qingjin, then secretly released a ferocious beast at the place where Chun Qingjin was alone. Afterwards, a hero saved the beauty. Of course, this was only Qin Ting's one person's beautiful imagination. The actual situation was that when Chun Qingjin was alone, he coincidentally met second Prince Qin Yu, who was also alone. Afterwards, the two people walked together, and that ferocious beast that was deliberately released into the forest finally became a soul under Qin Yu's sword. In short, thinking about it was still very exciting. However, Suwon felt that this kind of drama wasn't lively enough. It would be best if she could add a bit of spice or something. Thus, when everyone was seriously hunting, Suwon began to stroll around the hunting grounds. She was looking for that ferocious beast in the script. It was said that it was a white tiger king. White. Suwon turned and turned in the depths of the forest, turned, and finally succeeded. Lost her way, alright. Getting lost is also not a big deal. But just when she discovered that she was lost, Suwon heard rustling sounds coming from the thicket behind her. Immediately after, a tiger's roar suddenly entered her ears. The steed under Suwon's body immediately trembled and knelt on the ground. Suwon, who was caught off guard, miserably fell from the horse's back like this, and her body just so happened to fall into an ice-cold embrace. "Are you all right?" The familiar and deep voice made Suwon's face immediately turn cold. "Let go, don't touch me." Suwon's tone was so cold that it was somewhat frightening. Su Rui's body stiffened, but he still tightly hugged the person in his embrace. "I won't let go, won't let go. Even if you beat me to death, I won't let go." Suwon. Childish, seeing that Suwon's face was calm, but she did not struggle in his embrace, Su Rui couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. His tone was gentle as he leaned on Suwon's ear and softly called, "Xiaowon, Xiaowon, Xiaowon." Seeing that Suwon kept on ignoring him, Su Rui continued to display his shameless spirit and kept on calling her name. Enough. Unable to bear it any longer, Suwon finally couldn't help but interrupt Su Rui's words. The two people finally became silent together until a gust of mountain wind blew, blowing the white snow satin on Suwon's head. The soft snow satin lightly swept past Su Rui's face. Su Rui lowered his eyes and looked at Suwon affectionately and gently. "Can you not hate me? Why did you only appear now?" The two people unexpectedly spoke at the same time and then stared blankly at each other. "You don't hate me?" Su Rui's gaze suddenly brightened, and he unwaveringly stared at Suwon's face. Suwon was somewhat embarrassed by his gaze and immediately indifferently turned her face away. "Where do I have the leisure to hate you?" "Not hated." General Su felt that his recently irritable and crazy mood immediately cleared up, so Xiaowon wasn't angry. Sure enough, TV dramas are all lies. General Su decided not to watch those melodramatic TV dramas anymore. Wait. Su Rui's gaze flashed, and he suddenly thought of the words Suwon asked him just now. She asked him, "Why did you only appear now?" Does this mean that in the past few days, his Xiaowon had actually been waiting for him? "Xiaowon, you've been waiting for me?" Su Rui felt that his heart was beating especially fast, and his tone carried a tremor that he didn't notice. No. Suwon firmly shook her head. "Won't admit it. Won't admit it even if you beat her to death. What happened to not being childish?" Roar. Chapter 111. After that day's matter, Suwon really hated Su Rui in her heart. She hated him for being indifferent after the matter. But seeing him again today, Suwon truly understood that facing Su Rui, she couldn't be ruthless at all. Moreover, Suwon actually knew Su Rui's sincerity towards her better than anyone else. That heart was sincere and untainted, wholeheartedly only for her. As for not daring to show up after the matter, Suwon felt that it was necessary to properly educate him in the future and watch less melodramatic TV series, so this time, she would be magnanimous and forgive him once. Next time. Dare to think about next time? Humph, humph, humph. Suwon broke free from Surue's embrace. At this time, she finally noticed a certain colossus that had been ignored for a long time. White Tiger King? Suwon couldn't help but call out. This tiger's entire body was snow-white and its gaze was sharp. It looked especially mighty and fierce. You're talking about it. Surue waved at the white tiger at the side. That white tiger immediately walked gracefully and slowly to the two people's side. I bumped into it on the way. There were a few sneaky fellows that I killed along the way. Surue mentioned this matter, and his tone was especially light. Xiaowan, since you're not angry with me anymore, I'll take this opportunity to help you deal with Chun Qingjin and Qin Yu. Oh, have you forgotten the mission enforcers regulations? If there are no special requirements, the mission enforcers can't directly attack the male and female leads. Suwon glanced at Surue. She was really afraid that Surue would deal with those two people with a knife. It should be known that the punishment for violating the mission enforcers regulations was very big. Am I that stupid? I do things here now. As he spoke, Surue proudly pointed at his head. High IQ imperial uncle and whatnot. Now that he thought about it, it seemed pretty good. Seeing his incomparably cocky appearance, Suwon couldn't help but curl her lips. In short, don't mess around in this world. No, you have to promise me, in the future, no matter what you encounter in any world, you can't mess around. Remember to never touch the mission enforcers regulations. Got it, don't worry. Hearing Suwon's words, Surue agreed without hesitation. In his opinion, as long as Xiaowan said it, he would absolutely obey unconditionally. At this time, Surue never thought that there would be a day when he would disregard everything and touch that iron law. Not only did he kill the main character of a world with his own hands, but he also dismembered him and slaughtered his entire family. Everyone had their bottom line and reverse scale. Once Surue's reverse scale was touched, he would immediately transform into the original General Su who slaughtered the heavens. Of course, this was all in the future. Now, looking at the fierce white tiger in front of her and glancing at the trace of fear in the big tiger's eyes towards Surue, Suwon didn't need to think to know that when Surue met it just now, he definitely did something incomparably bloody again. Even the Tiger King was afraid of him. General Su, that's enough. Raising her head to look at the sun that was blocked by the dense branches and leaves, Suwon couldn't help but whisper, "It's almost time. You've brought our fifth prince's secret weapon here. Can't you let other people play happily? Isn't it just having fun?" Surue narrowed his eyes. "This horse of yours is also crippled. I'll bring you to ride the tiger for a stroll and conveniently invite you to watch a big show." As he spoke, Surue single-handedly pulled Suwon over and carried her onto the white tiger's back. "Big White, give your female master a flying one." White Tiger King, said to be mighty and fierce, what the hell is flying? I don't even have wings also, Big White and whatnot. It's said that they are all called warm men. Someone as fierce and invincible as this Tiger King should at least have a domineering and overflowing name. Okay? Although somewhat unwilling, when a certain tiger thought of Surue's terrifying skills and eyes full of killing intent, in the end, it still obediently obeyed and brought the two people for a ride in the dense forest after an hour, somewhere in the hunting ground. Chen Qingjin and her big brother Qin Yushu also got separated a quarter of an hour ago. Right now, her horse was still carrying a few prey that she had just hunted. Participating in this time's hunt, Chen Qingjin's original goal was to make friends with some influential people in the imperial capital and let herself leave a good impression in everyone's hearts. She didn't want to be like her past life, a rich young lady who was raised in her boudoir and didn't understand anything. In this life, she wanted to find Qin Ting for revenge, so she had to first accumulate her own connections and power. Roar. A deafening tiger roar interrupted Chun Qingjin's contemplation. Chun Qingjin's expression became flustered. Right now, the steed under her also seemed to have received a fright and suddenly stamped its hooves in panic. Chun Qingjin subconsciously used force to tighten the reins in her hands. In the next moment, the steed under her suddenly bent its legs and fell to the ground, and Chen Qingjin was immediately flung off the horse. Roar. Following another roar, a completely snow-white tiger peeked its head out from the thicket. Facing that pair of ferocious tiger eyes, Chen Qingjin cried out in fear and subconsciously wanted to draw her bow and shoot an arrow. But right at this moment, that ferocious white tiger suddenly leapt up and pounced towards Chen Qingjin's body. Even though she had been reborn once, Chen Qingjin, who had only lived for 40-plus years in both lives, had never encountered such a terrifying scene. When she saw the ferocious white tiger opening its bloody mouth and pouncing towards her, Chen Qingjin's eyes rolled and she immediately fainted from fright. And right at this time, Su Rui, who had been hiding on a big tree not too far away to watch the bustling scene, placed Su Wan, who was in his embrace, on a branch at the side. "You wait for me. I'm going to pose for her." Su Wan blinked her eyes. She sat on the tree and looked down from a high vantage point as she personally watched Su Rui grab Big White's claws and leave claw marks on Chen Qingjin's chest, legs, and stomach. A minute later, Chen Qingjin's clothes were already in tatters, and her spring scenery was exposed. "How is it?" Returning to the tree, Su Rui looked at Su Wan with a face begging for praise. Su Wan muttered to herself and suddenly raised her head to look at Su Rui's face. She asked expressionlessly, "Does it look good?" Su Rui stared blankly and somewhat inexplicably looked at Su Wan. Su Wan curled her lips and used her eyes to glance at Chen Qingjin's shining white body on the grass. "I'm asking you, does she look good to look?" "Su Rui, I didn't touch her." Somewhat eagerly raising his hand, Su Rui looked at Su Wan with a pitiful face. "It was all Big White who touched her. I didn't even touch a corner of her clothes, and whether she looks good or not, who knows? It's not like it's his Xiao Wan. He doesn't want to look." Thinking like this, Su Rui subconsciously glanced at Su Wan's chest again. In short, Xiao Wan's figure in this world is who knows how much better than Chen Qingjin's airport and whatnot. No wonder Qin Ting doesn't like it, Su Rui. I know what you're thinking. On the side, Su Wan suddenly whispered something coldly. Su Rui immediately retracted his gaze and put on a calm expression. "Xiao Wan, they're here." Before finding Chen Qingjin, Su Rui had already released Big White to walk around the hunting ground, attracting those that should and shouldn't be attracted. In short, all the men in the hunting ground were attracted by him. Seeing that the sound of horse hooves was getting closer and closer, Su Rui smiled and raised his hand. Internal energy condensed on his fingertips, and he suddenly released it towards Chen Qingjin on the ground, hitting an acupuncture point through the air. And Chen Qingjin, who had originally fainted from fright, softly murmured. Her brows lightly knitted, and she slowly opened her eyes. For a moment, Chen Qingjin's consciousness was still somewhat fuzzy, and she didn't know where she was. The sound of horse hooves came from all around. Chen Qingjin propped her body up and wanted to sit up. As a result, the moment she lowered her eyes, she saw her tattered clothes that were scratched and she immediately cried out. Chapter 112. Qingjin. Seeing Chen Qingjin's tattered and shivering appearance, the first to react was naturally Da Qing's good older brother, Qin Yushu. He quickly jumped down from the horse, tore open his outer robe, and directly wrapped Chen Qingjin's body. "Big brother." Right now, Chen Qingjin's face was full of shame and indignation. Her entire body curled up and leaned on Qin Yushu's embrace. Not far away, the other princes and nobles all whispered in low voices. Due to Chen family's face, they couldn't say anything brazenly. But Qin Yu at the side, he glanced meaningfully at the gloomy-faced Qin Ting not far away, and then casually swept a glance at the crowd. "Has everyone seen young Miss Su? Su Wan?" Everyone looked at each other in dismay. They really didn't see Su Wan's figure along the way. "Young Miss Chen, was the one that attacked you a white tiger?" Qin Yu calmly jumped down from the horse, looked at the messy paw prints on the ground, and asked with a frown. "Yes, it's a white tiger." Right now, Chen Qingjin's expression finally recovered a bit. She also remembered that the last thing she saw before she fainted was a white tiger. At that time, that tiger ferociously pounced towards her. At that moment, she thought that she was dead for sure, but who knew that the result would actually be? Io didn't expect that white tiger to be a pervert. It was unknown who in the crowd didn't dare to underestimate Chen Qingjin. Chen Yushu's expression immediately turned cold and his sharp gaze swept through the crowd. That person immediately lowered his head and didn't speak anymore. It was Qin Yu who took the opportunity to change the topic and break the awkwardness of the scene. Right now, young Miss Chen is already fine, but that white tiger's whereabouts are unknown. We also don't know whether young Miss Su is safe or not. Why don't everyone split up and search? Everyone also doesn't want to see young Miss Su have an accident. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, what Second Highness said is extremely true. With Qin Yu's help, everyone immediately took advantage of the situation and turned their horses around to start looking for Su Wan's figure. At this time, Qin Ting, who had been silent the whole time, also jumped down from the horse. He restrained the strange look in his eyes and walked in front of the Chen family siblings with a gentle expression. Yushu, Su Wan is your fiancée. You better go and look for her. If something really happens, you also won't be able to explain to Su family. Qingjin, you don't need to worry about her. I will help you take care of her. Fifth Highness, Shin Yushu was somewhat hesitant. After all, men and women should not touch each other, and it would not be appropriate to hand over his younger sister to the Fifth Highness alone. But thinking that his fiancée's life and death were indeed uncertain, just when Shin Yushu was hesitating, Chen Qingjin subconsciously burrowed into Chen Yushu's embrace. Big brother, don't go. I'm scared. I'm scared. Speaking till here, Chen Qingjin's face was pale, looking like he was about to cry. All right, don't be afraid. Big brother will accompany you. Chen Yushu sighed and raised his eyes to meet Qin Ting's gaze. Fifth Highness, many thanks for your good intentions. It is better for me to take care of my younger sister. I ask your highness to help me look for young Lady Su. No worries, then you bring Qingjin out first. Qin Ting agreed with a smile, but when he turned around, his face was as heavy as water. Seeing that everyone had left, Chen Yushu looked at the younger sister in his embrace, his gaze filled with heartache. Qingjin, don't be afraid. Big brother will bring you out of the hunting ground. Don't worry, today's matter. Big brother will help you settle it. In this era, a woman's reputation and integrity were especially important. As the eldest brother, Chen Yushu naturally had to think more about his younger sister. Thank you, big brother. Chen Qingjin leaned into Chen Yushu's embrace and sighed in her heart. If she had known earlier that this kind of thing would happen today, she would absolutely not have personally entered the hunting ground. Unfortunately, there was no if you had known earlier in life. Moreover, even if she was reborn once, there were some things that she could not control. Waiting until the lively scene was over, Su Rue brought Su Wan and jumped down from a big tree not far away. All right, it's about time. I should also show my face. It wouldn't be good if I was suspected by Qin Yu. Among the people here today, the one with the most meticulous thoughts was Qin Yu. Towards this male lead who strategized, Su Wan did not dare to underestimate the enemy. Qin Yu. Su Rue's gaze darkened. He seems to be quite concerned about you. You two are very familiar? Is he interested in you? Su Wan. Big brother, flying vinegar that has nothing to do with each other. If we can save it, then save it, all right? These days, life isn't easy. Vinegar is also quite expensive. Seeing Su Wan glaring at him, Su Rue could only faintly smile, but in his heart, he still remembered Qin Yu's words. At this time, Big White, who had already scurried around outside, came back valiantly and energetically. This white tiger king was an especially rare and precious breed. It was very intelligent. Although it feared Su Rue from the bottom of its heart, the animal's intuition was the sharpest. It had long discovered that the strongest person in this forest was Su Rue. Of course, although Su Rue was the strongest, the white tiger king leisurely rubbed against Su Wan's side and lifted its big paw to rub against her boots in a fawning manner. That's why this tiger king had already seen through the wife's servant wife and whatnot. Okay? No matter how powerful you are, don't you still have to listen to your wife? Su Wan felt the white tiger king's expression of goodwill. She lowered her eyes and just happened to meet that pair of very intelligent eyes. Su Wan's gaze turned and she lightly said with a smile, "Since my horse is gone, why don't you be my mount from now on? I'll bring you home." White Tiger King. Su Rue. I also beg to bring you home and whatnot. Seeing the man and tiger beside her staring blankly there, Su Wan's expression immediately turned cold. "What, you're not willing?" "Willing?" Su Rue immediately replied. "It's willing, not willing. I'll immediately kill it." White Tiger King. Hunting rare animals is illegal. You guys are immoral, too immoral. Although his heart yearned for the forest and freedom, in the end, a certain Tiger King still submitted to General Su's tyrannical power. So when everyone in the forest heard the tigers roar and entered the forest, the scene they saw was like this: a large, snow-white tiger was leisurely strolling between the trees, and on its back sat a delicate and pretty girl dressed in a sapphire blue outfit. The people who saw this scene collectively lost their voices. Could it be that our way of hunting was wrong? Su Wan? The first to react was still Qin. He raised his eyebrows and looked at Su Wan sitting on the tiger's back with interest. "This tiger is, Your Highness, don't you think it's very cute?" When Su Wan heard Qin use words, she first smiled and acted cute, then started to chatter to herself. "Just now when I met it in the forest, my horse refused to run. Now I can only ride it. It's called Big White. This is the name I gave it. Doesn't it match it? Oh my, look how beautiful it is. It's much better looking than the white horse at home. In the future, I can take it for a walk every day when I go out." Qin. Everyone. Eldest Miss Su, are you stupid or stupid? Take a Tiger King for a walk? In the capital? Chapter 113. Before the sun set, everyone finally came out of the hunting ground. Because an accident happened in the middle, everyone didn't have the mood to show off their prey. On the contrary, there were many aristocrats who kept turning their heads to look at Su Wan, who was following behind everyone. There was no other way. Who let other people's Big White be too dazzling? Once it neared, these horses wouldn't leave, so Su Wan could only be the last. Chen Jia's brother and sister had long come out. Right now, Chen Qingjin had already changed into a set of clothes and was obediently staying in Chen Jia's carriage. Regarding the matters on the hunting ground, those aristocratic young ladies who stayed outside naturally didn't know. But this didn't affect Chen Qingyao's acting of throwing stones at someone who was down at this moment. She saw Chen Qingjin's sorry figure when she came out. Although Chen Yushu had already tried his best to cover it up, from Chen Qingyao's intentional or unintentional words, the surrounding young ladies also knew some superficial information. It must be said that these young ladies were usually raised in their boudoirs and might not know the warmth and coldness of the common people's feelings. But they all had a very magical skill, and that was their imagination. Once this matter started, their imagination simply couldn't stop. Right now, Chen Qingjin's encounter in the hunting ground had already been imagined into 9981 dramas, all with no repetition, of course. After Su Wan's appearance, the imagination of these young misses was completely wiped out. Seeing Su Wan smiling and riding a ferocious white tiger not far away, some of the timid young misses couldn't help but cry out in alarm, "Ah, tiger!" The commotion outside the carriage also attracted Chen Qingyao's attention. Right now, she couldn't care about continuing her performance in front of Chen Qingjin. She turned around and curiously lifted the curtain of the carriage. When Chen Qingyao saw the scene outside, she couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air and cried out involuntarily, "White tiger! White tiger!" Hearing Chen Qingyao's words, Chen Qingjin's expression immediately became even more unsightly. Her trembling hands lightly lifted the curtain of the carriage, and sure enough, she saw Su Wan's leisurely figure not far away. How could it be like this? Chen Qingjin's fingers firmly grasped the carriage curtain in the palm of his hand. At the hunting ground, Qin Yu had asked everyone to look for Su Wan. At that time, Chen Qingjin was still thinking that if Su Wan also met that tiger and encountered the same thing as him, or was directly killed by the tiger, this would be extremely good. But what she never expected was that Su Wan actually encountered that tiger and even tamed it. This is impossible. Impossible. Chen Qingjin involuntarily clenched his teeth, a look of deep-seated jealousy flashing past his eyes. Since she was reborn, What she hated the most was that the people she hated had a better life than her. These people should all die. All of them should go to hell. In this life, they should taste the humiliation and pain they had suffered in their previous lives 10 times, 100 times more. The thought of crazy revenge flashed through Chen Qingjin's mind. Seeing that Chen Yushu was already walking towards Su Wan, Chen Qingjin's mouth was already filled with a faint fishy and salty smell of blood. Blood and pain could clear her head. She lowered the curtains of the carriage and lowered her eyes, hiding her expression in the darkness. This white tiger. Shin Yushu arrived in front of Su Wan. Facing the tall white tiger, Shin Yushu's figure seemed especially slender. His name is Dabai. Su Wan blah 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 blah, once again acting stupid in front of Shin Yushu. This idiot eldest young miss, did quite a lot. And seeing Su Wan's radiant, innocent, and excited appearance, Shin Yushu's originally ice-cold gaze that was staring at the white tiger was gradually replaced by gentleness. It turned out that Su Wan was also quite cute. Shin Yushu didn't hate Dabai that much right now. Although it made Shin Qingjin look bad, at least it didn't harm anyone's life. How could a person be calculative with a beast? Right at this time, there was another clamor from the crowd. It turned out that Jian Wangfu's horse carriage had appeared again. Inside the carriage, Su Rui still had a weak and frail appearance. He leaned on the soft couch, his chilly gaze looking in the direction where Su Wan and Shin Yushu stood. "Young Miss Su, this is your white tiger?" Wang Ye. Seeing Su Rui appear, Su Wan immediately jumped down from Dabai's body and looked at him with a nervous expression. "Wang Ye, you wouldn't be thinking of capturing it, right? Although this hunting ground is yours, before entering today, everyone agreed that you can bring your own prey away." Coo. Su Rui pretended to cough twice and then looked at Su Wan with a serious expression and softly said, "Tigers are the king of beasts and this is a rare white tiger king. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for you to bring it into the capital like this." Speaking up to here, Su Rui muttered to himself for a moment and continued softly with a gentle expression. "If young Miss Su trusts Ben Wang, then let Ben Wang arrange for people to send it back to the capital and place it in the Wangfu's precious beast garden. In the future, young Miss Su can visit it at any time. Also, every once in a while, Ben Wang can also send people to send it back to the hunting ground. At that time, young Miss Su can also accompany it." Hearing Su Rui's words, Su Wan's expression changed, as if she was somewhat reluctant. And at this time, Shin Yushu kept giving Su Wan meaningful looks, making her agree to Wang Ye's method. After all, tigers really can't be casually raised. It doesn't matter if Jin Xinwang raises one, but if Marquis Jingning Fu raises one, then it's a different matter. Well, actually, Su Wan doesn't necessarily need to raise a big tiger. Moreover, Su Rui's proposal was actually to give her a perfect cover for entering and leaving Jin Xinwang Fu in the future. Okay. In the end, Su Wan unwillingly agreed to Su Rui's words. The other people present didn't have any objections. Although today's hunt didn't have a winner or loser like in previous years, a lot of interesting things still happened. They naturally didn't dare to wantonly publicize the matter of Chen Qingjin exposing himself, but the Gongzi and young ladies present today weren't easy to deal with. After returning, this matter still quietly spread in the aristocratic circle of the capital. Chen Qingjin's reputation was more or less affected to a certain extent, and at this time, Su Wan's magnificent feat in the hunting ground had already spread in the capital. After all, the common people of the capital hadn't seen a real tiger for a long time, let alone a white tiger king. Even many officials in the capital curiously went to Jin Xinwang Fu to see the tiger king's elegant demeanor. However, a certain tiger king didn't give them any face and scared two timid civil officials into fainting, Marquis Jingning Fu. Lu Shi was very depressed that Su Wan didn't take advantage of the hunting ground to have a good time with Chen Yushu. Fortunately, her daughter also showed her face in the hunting ground and gained a lot of face for Marquis Jingning Fu in front of the two princes and Jin Xinwang. This made Lu Shi's mood a bit better. Recently, there were endless matters in the capital. After the autumn hunt ended, Marquis Jingning Fu received an invitation to the wedding banquet from Duke Zhenghua Fu. It turned out that after that matter last time, Duke Zhenghua was very angry, so he hurriedly arranged a marriage for his foolish son. Fortunately, Duke Zhenghua Fu's family background was rich and they had money and power. There were really people who saw money and didn't even blink and pushed their daughter into the fire pit. Suwan wasn't the least bit interested in who Qin Mian would marry in this life, but there was someone in Duke Zhenghua Fu that she was interested in. That person was naturally Yuru. After Yuru was sent to Duke Zhenghua Fu, she naturally suffered a lot of hardships. But she was originally a servant and could endure this pain for a short period of time. But Suwan reckoned that if she continued like this, she wouldn't be able to live for long. In fact, it wasn't that Chen Qingjin didn't think of finding someone to intercede to exchange Yuru. She even spent money to buy a young and beautiful woman to send to Duke Zhenghua Fu to exchange Yuru. But these were all rejected by Wang Shi. Nowadays, Wang Shi was very wary of anyone from Marquis Qingchuan Fu or anyone related to them. Under the current circumstances, to get Yuru out of Wang Shi's hands, there was only one person who could do it. That was Su Wan's mother, Lu Shi. These days, Lu Shi and Wang Shi had been in close contact. The two of them had always been brooding over the matter of that day and kept plotting to find the mastermind behind the scenes. Unfortunately, Yuru's mouth was very tight, and she naturally wouldn't betray Chen Qingjin. Moreover, when Lu Shi and Wang Shi saw that Yuru had suffered such a big crime, they all felt that it was impossible for her to know who the mastermind was. This servant girl should only be a scapegoat. Now, taking advantage of Duke Zhenghua Fu's big day, Suwan immediately begged Lu Shi to let her quietly exchange Yuru into Marquis Jingning Fu. Regarding her precious daughter's request, Lu Shi naturally happily agreed. As a result, not long after the wedding in Duke Zhenghua Fu, Yuru disappeared from the Fu. The servants in Duke Zhenghua Fu all said that she secretly ran away with someone. If she was alive, they didn't see her, and if she was dead, they didn't see her. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.